Present in the virtual courtroom, we have Diamond Jones' mother. We have Assistant Prosecuting Attorney Laura Clifton. We have Ms. Jones's attorney, Ms. Lowry. We have Father Eddie Gregory. We have Ms. Cardenas, Mr. Gregory's attorney. We have Matt Berry, Attorney Matt Berry, here on behalf of SC's father. Ms. Calais here on behalf of the children, and various agency workers are also present. And it's my understanding that today we will be taking a plea from Mr. Gregory regarding his child, EG. Is that correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right. And would you place the plea agreement on the record, please, Ms. Clifton?
Yes, he will be pleading to amended petition to specific paragraphs, which are paragraphs A, B, D, E, K, W, and X. And the rest of the paragraphs will be stricken.
And Ms. Cardenas, is that your understanding of the plea agreement?
Yes, it is, Your Honor.
All right. And are the parties willing to waive the reading of the amended petition?
Yes, Your Honor.
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. And Mr. Gregory, would you raise your right hand, please? And I'm sorry, I did not ask Ms. Calais, do you believe that the proposed plea is in the best interest of this child?
Yes, I do.
All right. And Mr. Gregory, do you understand the petition?
Yes.
Okay. There are a number of rights that you'll be giving up if you admit the petition today. Those rights are the right to have a trial by a judge or a jury, the right to require that the prosecutor prove the allegations by a preponderance or majority of the evidence, the right to question the prosecutor's witnesses in person in court under oath, the right to have the court order that any witnesses you believe would be helpful to your side of the case come to court to testify. Do you have any questions about these rights?
No.
Okay. Do you understand the rights that you'll be giving up if you plead guilty today or admit the allegations of the petition today?
Yes.
Okay. All right. There are a number of consequences that may flow from your plea today admitting the petition. Those are your child could be made a temporary ward of the court. Which means that the court has broad discretion regarding placement, which can include foster care with a relative or in a suitable institution. You'll be required to comply with a treatment plan to show that you're able to provide a safe and appropriate home for your child. You may be required to pay some of the costs of this case, including your attorney's fees, cost of care if your child is placed outside of the home, counseling costs, etc. Now, we all hope the next thing that I'm going to talk about won't happen, and it's certainly not going to happen today, but I am required to tell you about all the possible future consequences of your plea today. If you cannot show that you can provide a safe and appropriate home for your child within a reasonable amount of time, given the circumstances and your progress, there may be a future request to terminate your parental rights, and your plea today may be used as evidence in that proceeding. If your rights ultimately are terminated in the future, you will have no input as to your child's medical treatment, education, discipline, or residence. You would also have no right to parenting time with your child and no right to inherit from them or receive their earnings. If you have a child support obligation, that obligation will continue until a court of competent jurisdiction modifies or terminates it, an order of adoption is entered, or the child is emancipated by operation of law. Do you understand all of these possible consequences?
Yes.
Okay. Do you have any questions about those consequences?
No.
Okay. Have you reviewed the petition and today's plea with your attorney?
Yeah, she reviewed it with me.
Okay. Do you need to speak with her again before we proceed?
Yes.
You do need to speak with her?
Yeah, because I'm kind of confused.
Okay. We took a short recess so that Mr. Gregory could consult with his attorney, Ms. Cardenas. Mr. Gregory, you're still under oath, and I'm just going to pick up where we left off, all right? Can you hear me, Mr. Gregory?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Do you need to speak with your attorney again before we proceed?
No, not at all.
Okay. All right, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through the petition, read each of the paragraphs that pertain to you, and ask whether you admit or don't admit, okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Paragraph A reads, Ms. Diamond Jones is the biological mother of E.G. Jr. and S.C.
True.
Okay, you admit?
Yes.
Okay. Paragraph B reads, Mr. Eddie Gregory Sr. is the legal father of E.G. There is no current front of the court order. Mr. Gregory signed an affidavit of parentage, SFN-5. 201.
I agree.
Paragraph D, as in dog, reads, in March 2022, a Child Protective Services complaint was received alleging sexual use of a different E.G. by Mr. Eddie Gregory. It was reported that E was residing in Arizona with her mother and would visit Mr. Gregory every summer. Due to this, the Grand Rapids Police Department and Phoenix Police Department conducted a joint investigation.
I agree.
Okay. Paragraph E, in March 2022, the other EG's well-being was verified by the Arizona Department of Child Safety. That E disclosed to the Arizona Department of Child Safety that she was used by her father on multiple occasions during the summertime when she would visit his residence in Grand Rapids, Michigan.
I agree.
Paragraph K. On August 26, 2022, Child Protective Services received a new complaint alleging that a domestic violence incident occurred between Ms. Diamond Jones and Mr. Eddie Gregory, where E.G. Jr. and S.C. were present. Ms. Diamond Jones was arrested for domestic violence. Law enforcement left E.G. in the care of Mr. Gregory, and S.C. was taken to her maternal aunt's home.
I agree.
Paragraph W reads, Mr. Eddie Gregory has been incarcerated at the Kent County Jail awaiting criminal trial since November 14th, 2022 for the charge of CSC first degree.
I agree.
Paragraph X reads, Mr. Eddie Gregory pled no contest to CSC second degree and was sentenced to a minimum of 5 years in prison on March 4th, 2024.
I agree.
All right, thank you. Has anyone made any promises to you or threatened you in any way in order to encourage you to admit the allegations of this petition?
No.
Are you admitting those allegations of your own free will?
Yes.
Has anyone told you that the court would go easier on you if you admitted the allegations in the petition?
No.
Right, I'm satisfied there's a factual basis to accept Mr. Gregory's plea, that he has been fully advised of his rights and is freely, understandingly, and voluntarily entering into this plea regarding the allegations of this petition. I further find that by a preponderance of the evidence that one or more of the statutory grounds alleged in the petition are true, and that Mr. Gregory is a respondent in this matter. Mr. Gregory, appellate review is available to challenge any errors in the adjudicatory process, which may be challenged in an appeal from the initial order of disposition following adjudication. If you are indigent, you are entitled to the appointment of an attorney to represent you on any appeal of right and preparation of any relevant transcripts. You may be barred from challenging the assumption of jurisdiction or the removal of your child from your care and custody in an appeal from the order terminating parental rights, which we're not doing today, but if that happens, if you do not timely file an appeal under MCR 7.204 or delayed appeal under MCR 3.993C. At any time while the court retains jurisdiction over your child, you may challenge the continuing exercise of that jurisdiction by filing a motion for rehearing pursuant to MCL 712A.21 or by filing an application for leave to appeal with the Michigan Court of Appeals. And Ms. Clifton, would you and your adjudicative witnesses like to be excused?
Yes, please.
All right, thank you. You're excused.
Thank you.
And Ms. Calais, are you prepared to go on to disposition at this time, or not disposition, to review at this time?
Yes, I am.
Review. All right.
All right, I would like to call Emily Nicholson.
Thank you. Okay.
And Your Honor, we did go over exhibits, but I believe that was off the record. Would you like me to also do that on the record?
Yes, please. If you would just
All
list
right.
them.
Yes, thank you. As Exhibit 1, I have the case service plan and attached parent agency treatment plans dated June 5th, 2024. As Exhibit 2, the Kent Reunification Program updated service plan from May 20, 2024. Exhibit 3, the KRP contact report from May 16th, 2024. Exhibit 4, the psychological evaluation of Mother Diamond Jones with a date of January 16th, 2024. Exhibit 5, the parenting after trauma class completion report, also for Ms. Jones, dated June 10th, 2024.
Any objection?
No objection.
Ms. Lowry,
Sorry, no, Your Honor, no objection.
sometimes that mute button sticks.
Okay. And you've been assigned the case of EG and SC, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And you've been their caseworker for quite some time. So you are familiar with the case, is that correct?
That's correct.
All right. Let's begin by providing an update regarding the children. So they have since been returned home to the care of their mother, Ms. Jones. Is that correct?
That's correct. They were returned on May 3rd or March 3rd. I'm sorry.
So it's been a few months now. So how is that going since they've been returned?
It's going well so far. Both EG and SC have been adjusting well, being in the home with Miss Jones. They both reported that they are enjoying being in the home and that they are enjoying being with their mother.
Okay. And previously they had been with EG's paternal grandmother. Has there been any ongoing contact there?
No, not since the return. However, they did have a relative visit recently within the past couple of weeks.
Okay. And are the children up to date on medical and dental?
They are, yes.
Okay. And they are preschool age, is that correct?
That's correct, yes.
Okay. So no school to report. Any other significant updates regarding the children this reporting period?
No, not at this time.
Okay. And what services are being provided in the home for the children?
KRP has been in place in the home and has been in the home weekly working with Miss Jones. They have worked on service payment, budgeting, food security, internet setup. There's been the basic needs support in the home for Miss Jones and the children.
Okay. And kind of moving on to the mother, Ms. Jones. So I know that the date of the report is quite old, but we did finally receive that psychological evaluation recently. Is there any follow-up as a result of that psychological evaluation?
No, not at this time. Miss Jones did participate in counseling for a little while until that service was terminated in early April of 2024.
Okay. And why was that service terminated?
The service provider reported that the service was terminated due to lack of engagement and Miss Jones' willingness to discuss her barriers.
Okay. And that's also reflected in the psychological evaluation, a similar unwillingness to engage in a discussion of those barriers. Is that right?
That's correct.
Okay. At this point, what are you recommending in terms of follow-up following the psychological evaluation and the counseling services being terminated in April?
It is recommended that Ms. Jones continue working with KRP and their services.
Okay. And in terms of other barriers, can you provide an update on Ms. Jones' employment?
Yes, currently Ms. Jones is not working. However, she is actively looking for employment. She has shown me multiple screenshots of applications that's been turned in through Indeed. At this point, I do not believe she has heard back from any of those applications.
Okay. And she had been working at various points throughout the pendency of this case. Is that right?
That's correct.
Okay. So it sounds like she's shown some ability to get a job, but maybe having some difficulty maintaining that job. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And regarding housing, she received some housing assistance so that she could have an apartment now the children have been returned to her. Is that right?
That's correct. Yes.
Okay. But I believe in the reports there was some information about her being behind on some utilities to her landlord. Is that right?
Yes, Miss Jones has worked out a deal with her landlord to pay off these utility bills. She's reported to me that she will clean the building or mow the lawn to offset these bills.
And I believe the reports also indicated that KRP provided some financial assistance as well with those utilities. Is that right?
That's correct. They also helped with Miss Jones' trash service. They provided the payment for the setup fees and I believe a couple other payments for the trash service.
Okay. And have you been working with Ms. Jones on budgeting?
Yes, I have attempted to budget with Miss Jones.
And how has that gone?
Due to Miss Jones not having a current income, it's been difficult to budget with her. However, I will continue to attempt to budget with her once she does obtain income.
And in the reports, I believe there was some indication that she had been somewhat reticent to engage in budgeting discussions. Is that right?
At times, she stated that because the bills were not in her name, that budgeting wouldn't be necessary at the time, and that she would let me know once those bills were in her name, and then we would be able to move forward with budgeting, but that has not happened yet.
Okay. And regarding parenting skills, can you provide an update on how she's doing? It appears that she did complete the parenting after trauma class.
Yes, Ms. Jones did complete the parenting after trauma class, and she has reported that she's learned from the class and that she enjoyed going. I have seen good parenting skills from Ms. Jones. She's able to redirect the children when they are acting up or misbehaving, and she's able to utilize coping skills like deep breathing, and she models other coping skills like taking a break, or like to count from like 1 to 10, or other coping skills for the kids.
Okay. And regarding substance abuse, your reports indicate that Ms. Jones does use marijuana to address her anxiety. Can you provide a brief update there?
That's correct. Ms. Jones does utilize marijuana. However, there's a safety plan in place that Ms. Jones is to make sure that the marijuana product is locked and away from the children's reach. And that Ms. Jones is to have an appropriate sober adult in the home when she does utilize marijuana, and that she is able to provide safe and appropriate child care for the children when she utilizes marijuana.
Okay. And according to the reports, she showed you that the marijuana was kept on the top shelf in a bedroom. Is that correct?
That's correct, yes.
Have you been able to observe if it is now locked away? Not
yet. Each time I've observed it being on the top shelf in the closet of the bedroom.
Okay. And in terms of domestic relations, is there any further update there?
No, not at this time.
Okay. And what about communication, interpersonal skills? How have her communication skills been with the agency?
Ms. Jones has been able to maintain communication with the agency. At times when she is frustrated, she can escalate, but she's able to calm herself and she's able to come back and further the conversation appropriately.
Okay. And you mentioned that she's getting a number of supports from KRP and the household, including for things like transportation. Is that right?
That's correct. The agency has also put in a care portal request for car seats, which was approved, and Ms. Jones has 2 car seats appropriate for each child.
And does she have a vehicle?
She does not, no, but she has asked other supports in her social support for rides at times, and she's been able to utilize these car seats.
Okay. But at this point, the agency is providing quite a bit of assistance in terms of getting her to appointments, assisting with getting the children to doctor appointments and such. Is that right?
Ms. Jones does have a wave card. I believe KRP was able to assist her with getting her wave card for the busing system. So she's been able to utilize the bus system.
Okay. And is she actually taking the children by bus to some of these appointments herself then without agency assistance?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. Any further updates regarding Ms. Jones?
No, not at this time.
Okay. And regarding SC's father, has there been anyone who has come forward this reporting period stating that he is the father of SC?
No, not at this time. Reports on People Finder, there have been no updated information or new information regarding this individual. Ms. Jones continues to report that she does not know who the father is. So at this point in time, there has not been an individual who has come forward.
Okay. But she previously did identify, I believe, Sean Cooper as SC's father. Is that correct?
In the past, yes.
But there's been no ability to reach out to a specific Sean Cooper and attempt to identify whether or not he would be SC's father. Is that correct?
I have sent Facebook messages to this individual. However, I have not received any messages back. The last known place was Meltrotter. I've contacted Meltrotter and I have not received any calls back regarding this individual.
Okay. And regarding Eddie Gregory, have you had contact with him this reporting period?
Mr. Gregory has recently transferred to a different facility on Cooper Street in Jackson, Michigan. I've been sending letters via mail monthly for him with letters to update him on EG and case progress, as well as homework assignments, but I have not received any letters or anything back yet. I am working with a facility on the referrals for visitation. I have not heard back yet on this, but I'm continuing to work to be able to go visit Mr. Gregory.
Okay. So when you say for visitation, you're talking about so that you can visit Mr. Gregory, not the children. Is
Correct.
that correct?
Correct. Yes.
Okay. All right. And he has not had any communication with EG this reporting period. Is that right?
That's correct.
Okay. And he has not returned any of those homework assignments to you, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Any further updates regarding EG? Or excuse me, Mr. Gregory?
Not at this time, no.
Okay. And what are your recommendations today?
It is respectfully recommended that Cooper remain in temporary court wards and remain in their parental home placement with Ms. Jones. That Ms. Jones participate with and benefit from Kent reunification program. That Ms. Jones parenting times be supervised or unsupervised at the agency's discretion. That Mr. Gregory's parenting times be supervised. That the permanency goal remain reunification. And that Ms. Jones and Mr. Gregory participate and benefit from their treatment plan.
Okay. And to clarify the recommendation regarding Mr. Gregory's parenting time being supervised, has he had any contact at all with EG that you're aware of during the pendency of this case?
That's correct.
He has not had any contact. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. Do you know as a result of his plea if there are any restrictions on his ability to have contact with minor children?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay. All right. Thank you. No further questions. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. Ms. Lowry.
Thank you, Your Honor. Just a couple questions, Ms. Nicholson. So Ms. Jones completed the parenting after trauma class, and is it fair that right now participating with KRP is kind of the most intensive hands-on service that is being requested of her at this time?
That's correct, yes.
Okay. And are there any other referrals that you're looking at, or really just continued engagement through with that program?
Continuing her engagement through KRP.
Okay. And the kids have been home with her for over 3 months, making it to doctor's appointments and so forth. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
All right. And Ms. Jones also utilizes other community supports. Is that correct? Such as like the Alpha Women's Center and other programs?
Yes, that's correct.
All right, great. So going forward, you want her to just continue her engagement with KRP and kind of just see a little bit more stability with the family, home, finances, those types of things. Is that accurate?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. All right. I don't have any other questions. Thank you.
All right. Ms. Cardenas.
Thank you. You said that you've been sending letters and homework packets to Mr. Gregory. Has he been able to tell you even if he receives those?
I have not had any contact with him, no.
Okay, so you don't even know if he's able to receive your mail at this point, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. So the best you can do at this point, are you thinking just trying to set up an in-person visit?
That's correct. Yes, I'm working with the facility on when I'd be able to go visit Mr. Gregory.
Okay. Have you attempted any phone calls?
With the facility, yes.
How about with Mr. Gregory? Is there a way to just even set up an initial phone call to make sure he at least receives your stuff before your visit?
I have not done that yet, but I will make sure to follow up with the
Okay.
facility.
So in your contact with the current facility he's at, do you know if they are able to provide any services to him?
Yes, they're able to provide him GED services or college programs, as well as counseling. Mr. Gregory is able to sign up for those at any time.
Okay. Are you recommending that he do counseling?
Yes,
Okay. But he might have not known that until he heard you right now, correct?
that's correct.
Any other services that they have available?
When I had spoken to the facility, they had said that they had quite a few programs available to their inmates. However, I'm not sure what other programs there are, but I know that there are others that are available.
Well, are there barriers you want him to address?
I believe that would be beneficial if Mr. Gregory were to engage in counseling or in parenting skills.
Okay. Do you know, did they have a parenting skills class?
I am not aware, but I will continue to follow up with the facility.
Okay. So it's just a question you need to ask the facility. They might.
That's correct, yes.
Okay. And then E.G. Little can have phone calls and videos with his father, correct?
To my knowledge, yes.
It just needs to be supervised at this point. Is it fine to be supervised by the mother, Miss Jones?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. Will the agency assist with that if Miss Jones doesn't want to set up, those videos or phone calls?
Yes, the agency will look into, I believe it's JPay or other services or systems to be able to set up that contact.
All right, thank you. Your Honor, I have no more questions.
Thank you, Mr. Barry.
I just have one quick question. For the alleged father on SC, you mentioned him being at Mel Trotter. Did you send a letter there to him?
No, I had called there regarding him and requesting a phone call back. However, I have not heard back.
Okay. So they said that they would give him the message and have him call you?
That's correct.
Okay. So I just ask if you could try to contact him by a letter. Would you be able to do that as well?
Yes, I will.
Okay.
I will do it.
All right. I have no other questions, Your Honor.
Thank you. Ms. Calais, any follow-up?
No, Your Honor.
Ms. Cardenas, any follow-up?
No, Your Honor.
All right. Ms. Calais, any additional witnesses?
No, Your Honor.
Ms. Cardenas, any witnesses?
No, Your Honor.
Mr. Barry, any witnesses?
No, Your Honor.
All right, statements, Ms. Calais.
Oh, I think we might have missed Ms. Lowry there.
Oh, I'm sorry, Ms. Lowry.
No witnesses for me.
Sometimes
thank
the
you.
squares move. That's what it did to me. So sorry about that.
No worries.
All right, statements. Thank you, Ms. Calais.
Thank you. I did have an opportunity to very, very briefly meet with the children via Zoom yesterday. I had an in-person appointment scheduled the day before, which unfortunately was not met. Despite me going to the home and calling. So we attempted to do a Zoom meeting, but the connection was choppy and Ms. Jones was kind of between appointments and I was expecting to hear back and didn't hear back. So I at least did have a brief check-in with the children. I would say that overall I'm in support of the recommendations. I'm very happy to hear that the children are doing well in Ms. Jones's care. I do believe they should remain in her care. I will say I am concerned about how much progress still needs to be made for her to really be parenting on her own without assistance, because it does sound like she's relying on assistance for virtually everything at this point, except maybe some transportation by busing. So hopefully she can really step up and start taking on a lot of that responsibility herself and making sure that she's attending appointments there for scheduled appointments without having some of the escalation that the agency described. In terms of Mr. Gregory, I would recommend that parenting time be suspended at this point, considering that there has not been parenting time at this point. Now he is going to be incarcerated for the next 5 years, and there really has not been any level of engagement by Mr. Gregory during the pendency of the case. I simply don't think at this point even supervised parenting time would be appropriate, particularly supervised parenting time by Ms. Jones, given the domestic violence between them and our efforts earlier in the case to really minimize contact between the two of them. So if the court does want to follow the recommendation of supervised parenting time, I would ask that it be supervised by the agency, not Ms. Jones. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Ms. Lowry.
Thank you, Your Honor. Overall, I think the recommendations are appropriate. Very proud of Ms. Jones. Obviously, she's got a lot on her hands. She kind of not jumped back into it. I think it was appropriately, actually very appropriately handled as far as how the transition occurred and the weekends. But it's still, she's got 2 young kids, not in school, full-time caring for them right now on top of appointments. So I think KRP is the best service because it's in home with her and kind of assessing what needs are in place at certain times. So, but she's also very capable at searching out resources in the community and so forth. So I think she does a good job of utilizing that and is making a lot of progress, has kept the kids in her care and they're doing well and happy from the reports and love their mom. So I'm very proud of her for doing that and completing her parenting class as well. So there's a lot of things she's juggling. And I think she's working on getting employment. I think it was stated, she's generally always worked, but I think kind of with the kids coming home, wanted to see where things are at. So she hopefully will get a call back on one of these and we can keep moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Cardenas.
Thank you, Your Honor. We support the recommendations. Besides the fact, I obviously do think that we should continue with the supervised parenting time for Mr. Gregory and his child. It is incorrect. He's had consistent contact with his child throughout this case. It's been through the relatives all along. It's been stated in prior testimony. So I don't know why we would cut that off at this point.
And I'll just say the court would note that I have notes indicating prior testimony that he was having telephone calls from the jail with the child. So
right. And it
was an error
to continue that relationship. Thank you.
All right. Mr. Berry.
No statement, Your Honor, other than just what I've already noted as requesting the caseworker try to reach out to SC's alleged father at Mel Trotter, which I will also continue to try to make contact with them too. Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
And Your Honor, if I may just add briefly, I'm sorry if I misremembered the level of contact in this case. If there had been contact, and I do believe Ms. Cardenas is correct on that, that was being supervised by the grandmother. If that contact was appropriate, I think she could be an appropriate supervisor, but I do believe that Ms. Jones would probably not be the best supervisor for that contact.
All right. Thank you. I would agree with that assessment. The court finds that the lawyer guardian ad litem has complied with the requirements of the statute, provided that she's able to provide the court with a confirmation email that she's actually had in-person contact with the children here in the next couple of weeks. I will just say, Ms. Jones, it's really imperative that you make those appointments with Ms. Calais because she is the children's lawyer, and as long as this case is open, it's very important that she's able to see them in person. All right. Let's see here.
knowing that my situation, can you ask her to be flexible to,
Well, yes, flexible is all, it's
house?
fine, but if there's an appointment, you need to
My
keep
phone
it.
is not really working, and I believe everybody that's on this case know that. And then I stay in a dead zone. So it's like my service, even with my Wi-Fi, it's nothing. That's why I'm at the park right now with my kids early in the morning, so I can be able to, do this Zoom meeting
All right,
instead
all
of
right.
dragging my kids on a bus. So if she
Thank
can
you.
just be flexible to come in to see me and my kids, that'd be much better than a phone call or Zoom.
Well, yes, in person is what the statute requires. So
All
thank
right,
you.
appreciate it.
All right. Let's see, where was I? The court orders that the children remain home with Ms. Jones under the supervision of the department. That parenting time of Mr. Gregory is to be supervised until further order of the court, and the court's already indicated that the court agrees that Ms. Jones is not an appropriate supervisor for contact between EG and his father. I'll continue the attorneys in this matter. And Ms. Gibson, do we have a date for a progress review hearing?
Would that be 90 days, Your Honor?
Yes.
Okay, I have September 12th at 1:30.
Any conflicts with that date or time?
That works for me.
That works.
That works.
Yes, that's okay.
Okay, we will see.
Present in the virtual courtroom, we have mother, Ms. Jones. We have father, Mr. Gregory, mother's attorney, Jessica Lowry, father's attorney, Mr. Gregory's attorney, Ms. Cardenas, Mr. Unknown father is represented by Matt Berry, and the children are represented by Ms. Calais, and we also have various agency workers attending today. All right, Ms. Calais.
Thank you. I'd like to call Emily Nicholson.
Thank you.
Your Honor, as a preliminary matter, I do have 3 exhibits I'd like to offer into evidence. First, I'd like to offer the updated case service plan with attached parent agency treatment plans. Those are dated September 3rd, 2024. As Exhibit 2, the contacts report, which is from various dates. And finally, as Exhibit 3, the Kent Reunification Program termination report that's dated July 25th, 2024.
Any objection?
No, Your Honor.
Nope.
All right, they're all admitted.
And can you begin by providing an update for the children? Let's begin first with EG. How is he doing?
EG is doing well in the home. He recently completed a dental appointment, which was reported that he has some cavities. There will need to be another appointment scheduled for that. EG has also started school late August in the kindergarten level, and that has been going well so far. EG has also been doing really well in the home with Ms. Jones and SC.
And is he up to date on medical?
Yes, he is.
Does he have any other appointments coming up? I know we heard that he may have some medical issues going on.
Not from the I can't pronounce the word, the neutropenia. The last time when he was at the doctor with his previous caregiver, there were no major concerns regarding that.
Okay. So we don't anticipate any immediate follow-up on that, is that right?
That's correct.
Okay. And is he receiving any services at this time?
No, not at this time.
Okay. And for SC, can you provide an update on how she's doing?
She's also doing well in the home. She also completed a dental appointment to which she has cavities as well, and the follow-up appointment will need to be scheduled. And her medical appointment is scheduled for October 15th. And she is to be starting school soon. Ms. Jones has a couple documents to send into the school first.
And that would be preschool?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. And is she receiving any other services at this time?
No, not at this time.
Okay. And then can you provide an update regarding the mother, Ms. Jones, and her barriers? Let's first talk about KRP was in the home, but they were discharged this reporting period. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct. They were discharged on 7/25.
And what was the reason for that discharge?
There was a lack of progress being made in identified goals with KRP.
Okay. And can you identify a little bit more specifically what KRP was working with Ms. Jones on and the lack of progress there? KRP was working with Ms. Jones on childcare as well as employment.
The agency was able to provide Ms. Jones with some childcare providers. Ms. Jones did look into them, however, was not able to complete the following expectations for the childcare. But now that EG is in school, the childcare is not needed. But Ms. Jones was approved for 60 hours of childcare for both children.
Okay. So you mentioned about EG being in school, so you anticipate SC will be in school as well, so there would not be as much of a need for childcare if Ms. Jones were to find employment. Is that what I'm understanding?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. If Ms. Jones were to find employment outside of school hours, or is there still the possibility for getting some childcare assistance?
Yes, I can follow up with Ms. Jones on regards to childcare and other childcare providers.
Okay. But at this point, I believe if I understand the reports correctly, she had been approved for childcare, but then didn't follow through. So that has now lapsed. So she needed to start that process over. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. And can you provide an update regarding her employment?
Ms. Jones has been able to show me some screenshots of her sending in her application online. However, she has not been successful at finding any employment currently.
Okay. And kind of going way back in the case, that was part of why she placed the children with relatives and fictive kin in Saginaw, was to try to focus on employment. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct.
So that employment still remains an issue several months later. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. Going through other potential barriers, can you talk a little bit about parenting skills? How is she doing on that front?
Ms. Jones does well with parenting both EG and SC. She does show that she's able to use coping skills, and she's been able to teach both children coping skills, such as like being able to deep breathly, to calm down, and to count to help calm down as well. She's also been observed to teach SC how to write her name and trace letters on a whiteboard. And she's also working with EG on some math skills and also on how to write his name.
And I believe in the CareP report, there was some indication that she had been referred to some parenting classes that I believe she didn't complete. Is that correct?
She did complete the Parenting After Trauma at Bethany Agency.
Okay. So is there any other parenting class that you're asking her to complete at this time?
Not at this time, no.
Okay. And then in terms of substance abuse, your reports indicate that Ms. Jones has indicated that she does use marijuana, and that you expect that marijuana will be locked up and that there'll be a sober caregiver. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. Ms. Jones has also shown me where she keeps her marijuana vape, which is in her bedroom closet on the top shelf in a lockbox.
Okay. And then in terms of the sober caregiver, is there somebody identified that she has that she will utilize when she is using marijuana?
Ms. Jones will utilize a friend or an appropriate approved friend.
Okay. Has she given you specifics about who that person is, or if that person's been approved by the agency to watch the children?
Not at this time, no.
Okay. And in terms of domestic relations, can you provide us an update there and how Ms. Jones is doing?
Currently, Ms. Jones reports that she's not in any relationships and therefore is not in any domestic violent relationship.
Okay. And what about relationships a little bit more generally? There was concern earlier in the case, for example, for getting into an altercation with her sister and having some strained relationships with family. Is there any progress on any of those fronts?
There has been some concerns of Ms. Jones being able to appropriately communicate with others, but Ms. Jones is able to come back after taking a break and to be able to be more calm.
Okay. And is she doing any kind of counseling or any services like that?
Not at this time. However, I did offer her to for a counseling referral. Ms. Jones reported that she wanted to look into her own counseling services, and then she would let me know so that I could put in that referral for her.
Okay. And has she followed through with identifying a counselor on her own?
Not yet, but the goal is hopefully by the end of this month.
Okay. And in terms of housing, she remains in her current housing, is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. And that housing has been determined to be appropriate for the children?
Yes, it has.
Okay. But according to reports, she is thinking about moving to Saginaw to move in with EG's paternal grandmother. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. If she were to move to Saginaw, have you had conversations with her about continuation of services and what services might be available to her?
I had a conversation with Miss Jones, and I'm working to schedule a phone call between Miss Jones, myself, and EG's paternal grandmother, so we all can talk about the expectations and what the plan is moving forward. And the services would also be part of that conversation.
Okay. And at this point, have you spoken with EG's paternal grandmother about this plan at all?
I have, yes.
Okay. And does she sound on board with the idea of Ms. Jones and the children potentially moving in with her?
She is, yes.
And we talked a little bit about employment. Obviously, that's very tied into resource management. Can you provide an update regarding resource management for Ms. Jones?
Miss Jones has been able to utilize the public transportation bus to be able to take her children to their appointments. And also she utilizes the farmers markets over the weekends. So I believe that she's utilizing her resources appropriately.
And the reports indicate that CareP was providing a lot of financial assistance, and that there were some concerns that several utilities had quite large balances on that. Can you provide any update about the utilities and those payments?
Ms. Jones has reported that she's been able to work out a deal with her landlord where she would do some cleaning around the apartment building to pay off those bills.
Okay. And have you done any kind of a budget with Ms. Jones?
Not yet, due to her not having an income. But once she does obtain an income, that will be completed.
Okay. Have you been able to kind of work with her in the reverse at all of taking a look at her expenses and trying to figure out based on her expenses what kind of an income she would need?
We have briefly, yes.
Okay. Does she seem to have an understanding of those expenses that she incurs and what income is needed?
Yes, I believe so.
Okay. All right. Any further updates regarding Ms. Jones?
No, not at this time.
Okay. And let's move to Mr. Gregory. He remains incarcerated, is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And have you had contact with him this reporting period?
Yes, I have.
Okay, can you describe that contact?
I have had contact with Mr. Gregory through JPay, through the jail system, as well as I was able to recently get in contact with the facility where I was able to schedule a phone conversation with Mr. Gregory this morning. It did take quite a bit of effort to get in contact with the facility. I went through a coworker here who then went through a different previous coworker to look into other personnel at the facility for me to be able to make communication with the correctional facility.
Okay. So it was tough to get in contact, but you were eventually able to get into contact with Mr. Gregory?
Yes.
Have you been able to mail him homework packets or any other homework assignments?
I did briefly discuss that with Mr. Gregory. He has reported to me that he already engages in groups weekly, that he already completes things for. And I indicated to him that I would send him links via the JPay for other topics that are not covered through his groups for him to read through and answer some questions.
Okay. And has he provided you with any documentation or anything indicating that he's followed through with those links that you've provided to him?
I have not yet sent links to him, but I will.
Okay. All right. Is there anything else that you're asking of Mr. Gregory at this time?
No, Mr. Gregory has reported, though, that he is being fully engaged with the facility and is being pretty active there, along with being engaged with the self-help groups. He also participates in various activities of basketball. He reports of going to the library and reading self-help books and being productive while incarcerated.
And at our last hearing, we had some discussion that his mother was providing some supervised parenting time with EG. Do you know if that has occurred this reporting period?
Mr. Gregory has reported that he's able to call Ms. Jones and talk to EG weekly. The agency is looking into being able to schedule virtual video visits with Mr. Gregory and EG. I have already sent in the application for EG to be approved, and these would be supervised through the agency.
And just to clarify your testimony, are those calls happening through Ms. Jones or through Mr. Gregory's mother?
I'm sorry, which ones?
The phone calls that Mr. Gregory has with his child, EG, are those being supervised by Ms. Jones or are those being supervised by his mother?
Ms. Jones.
Okay. And as far as you know, are those calls appropriate?
Yes, I've spoken to both Ms. Jones and Mr. Gregory about them, and they both reported that they are appropriate.
Okay. And is there any concern about Ms. Jones and Mr. Gregory having contact at this time?
No, not at this time.
Okay. Moving on to SC's father, has there been any further progress in locating him?
No, not at this time. I have sent I've looked through the People Finder website, and from there I found a number which I called, and it was disconnected. And there was an email on the report which I sent an email out to, and I haven't received an email back. I've also checked the jail websites with no further reports from that.
Okay. And what are your recommendations today?
It is respectfully recommended that EG and SC remain temporary court wards and remain in their parental home placement with Ms. Jones. It is respectfully recommended that Ms. Jones' parenting times be supervised or unsupervised at the agency's discretion. It is respectfully recommended that Mr. Gregory's parenting times be supervised. It is respectfully recommended that this matter be reviewed in 90 days.
And in your written report, you also indicated that you recommend that Ms. Jones participate and benefit from the CAT reunification program. But with that program now being discharged, is there any other option there to try to supplement or replace KRP?
There are other in-home services that the agency can look into for the family.
Okay. All right. No further questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Lowry.
Thank you. Just so EG is now in school, and is that full-time kindergarten for him?
Yes, it is.
Okay. And I think you said SC, there's just some documents that Ms. Jones needs to get to the school. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
All right. And does she need any assistance with getting the documents, or does she have them?
She reported to me that the class that she's attending on the 16th is what she's needing, and then a waiver is also needed for her teacher. But if she needs extra assistance, I'm available to help.
Okay. All right. And so that kind of alleviates, at least will alleviate the childcare issue at this point. Because I know this, when we earlier, it was kind of a catch-22. Ms. Jones felt like she needed childcare, but she needed a job to know what kind of childcare she needed. But she needed childcare to get a job. So hopefully she'll have a little bit extra time to determine what type of employment, and she'll know at least her children's school schedules so that she can try and work employment around that. Is that your understanding of her plan?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. All right. And I think you said, just wanted to clarify, she did complete the parenting after trauma class through the agency?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, great. And really all reports have always been that Ms. Jones is a great hands-on parent. The kids have been placed at home for 4 months. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
All right. And in the past, Ms. Jones has been able to find various forms of employment.
Yes, that's correct.
All right. As far as the possible move to Saginaw, can you just explain what prompted that discussion? Or
Miss Jones's lease will be up in October. And Miss Jones reported to me that EG's paternal grandmother has been a great support system for her, and she wanted to be able to be closer to her support system.
okay. So that was kind of just her trying to plan ahead with this lease coming up in October.
Yes, that's correct.
All right. Okay. Looking forward, are there any other specific services that you're looking to put in place for Miss Jones? I guess I'll ask that question. Are there any specific things that she still needs to complete outside of employment in her treatment plan?
We would like to see Miss Jones participate in counseling services.
Okay. All right. And that was, she was going to look for some counselors and then you were going to put the referral in?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. And Ms. Jones does have DHS worker that she can communicate with as well for resources?
Yes, that's correct.
All right. Do you know what the update is on the cash assistance, since I think it was maybe back in the summer when there was some concerns about it?
Ms. Jones has reported to me that she was able to complete that.
Okay. All right, great. Okay. So at this point, you're hoping for a counseling referral to at least get in place as kind of one of the last things, and then continued monitoring in regards to employment?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. But the children are getting to appointments, and at least EG is enrolled in school, and SC, I think it's maybe a little different since she's not kindergarten age as far as being able to get enrolled.
Yes, that's correct.
All right. Okay, no other questions. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Ms. Cardenas.
Thank you. Your Honor, I actually have no questions.
All right, Mr. Barry.
No questions, Your Honor.
All right, Ms. Calais, any additional witnesses?
No, Your Honor.
Ms. Cardenas.
Sorry, Your Honor, I have no witnesses or evidence.
Ms. Laurie.
No witnesses, Your Honor.
Mr. Barry.
No witnesses.
All right, statements, Ms. Calais.
Thank you, Your Honor. I did have an opportunity to meet in person with both children at Ms. Jones's home on Tuesday. They do appear to be doing well in her care. I guess I'm concerned about CareP being unsuccessfully discharged, particularly when CareP was providing so many services, and that the case has been pending for so long, and we still are seeing a lack of progress in terms of employment and budgeting and managing. However, I do believe that it is appropriate to have the kids, remain in Ms. Jones's care. So I do support that recommendation and support the recommendations broadly. I do think it would be more appropriate for Mr. Gregory's mother to be the supervisor, given the history of domestic violence between Ms. Jones and Mr. Gregory, just to ensure that there's no issues there. But I am in support of those recommendations. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Laurie.
Thank you, Your Honor. Well, I believe the children were returned to Ms. Jones early May, is my recollection. So we're at about 4 months, and I understand that there's been bumps in the road, especially with KRP. But at the end of the day, Ms. Jones has been able to keep the children home, safe, enrolled in school, attending appointments. And she has a pretty good support system. She knows how to utilize resources. She knows how to utilize her church, community resources, food banks, farmers market. I appreciate all Ms. Nicholson's help with her with these things as well. And so she has been able to get employment. I think having sent my own kids off to school, I know that there's a little bit more time, ability to kind of focus on things. She has to juggle more than other people do. She has to think about transportation to jobs on top of other things. So hopefully she can kind of look at those things a little bit more right now, but she has been able to get employment in the past. And so I'm pretty optimistic that she'll be able to get that as well. And so I would ask the court to consider discharge. I understand there's still some things that are out there, but at the end of the day, she has been engaging in services for a long time. She's been upfront and open with her workers about her needs and the children's needs, and the children are safe and happy from all reports. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Ms. Cardenas.
Thank you, Your Honor. We support the recommendations.
Mr. Barry.
No statement, Your Honor.
All right, thank you. The court finds that the lawyer guardian ad litem has complied with the requirements of the statute. That and will order that the children remain at home with Ms. Jones under the supervision of the department. That Ms. Jones fully cooperate with DHHS and its contract agencies. That she and the unknown father comply with and benefit from the case service plan. And Mr. Gregory as well. The parenting time of Mr. Gregory is supervised until further order of the court. And I agree with Ms. Calais that I think that someone other than Ms. Jones would be a more appropriate supervisor for those calls. But I guess I understand the difficulty with that. I just would encourage the agency to assist in finding an alternative solution there, given the history of domestic violence in this case. I will continue the attorneys in this matter. And Ms. Jones, the last couple of pieces for you are employment and counseling. Get those two things in place and we'll be able to discharge this case, all right?
Okay, and I just want to clarify a few things. I don't have a weed vape. Thank you, Emily. It's a tobacco vape that we all know that it's a tobacco vape. It's not marijuana. Second of all, I did get childcare from Tina's 24-hour childcare that she definitely knew of. So I already had childcare in place, but it was just the timings and everything since my son is in school. And yeah, it's just that. So I would definitely still need childcare just because my kids are in school. That doesn't mean my childcare needs to stop. I definitely still need childcare, just depending on the time that I do work.
Okay. Well, like I said, identify that counselor, get that name to Ms. Nicholson, and get a job in place. I think the move to Saginaw, at least based on what I've heard and what I know of this case, is probably a good idea. But there's just going to be some logistics to work out on that. And Ms. Gibson, do you have a date and a time for our next hearing, please?
Yes, December 3 at 2 p.m.
Any conflicts with that date or time?
No, just please make it the last one.
That works for me, Your Honor. Thank
That's
you.
up to you, ma'am.
That works.
Please make it the last one. Thank you.
Right. We have Kendra Ortega on behalf of the children. We have Scott Vanderhook on behalf of the state. We have Mother Diamond Jones, her attorney, Ms. Lowry. We have Eddie Gregory, father, Mr. Gregory's attorney, Stephanie Cardenas, Mr. Cooper's attorney, Matt Berry, various agency workers. All right. And we're here today not only for review, but also for an adjudication on a new amended petition. My understanding is that petition is being contested. Mr. Vanderhoek.
Thank you, Your Honor. I'd call Zachary Pasternak.
Mr. Vanderhoek.
Thank you, Your Honor. Officer Pasternak, you are a police officer with the Walker Police Department. Is that correct?
Correct.
And were you on duty on October 18th, 2024?
Yes, I was.
And did you encounter Diamond Jones on that date?
Yes, I did.
Okay. Could you please tell the court what led to your encounter and what happened after you made contact with her?
Yeah, so that day I observed a vehicle with no license plate. I saw two people in it, a male driving and the female in the passenger front seat. I activated a traffic stop on the vehicle, or I conducted a traffic stop on the vehicle. When I walked up to the car, the female was now in the back seat. I requested her identification. She gave me a fake name. Eventually, she gave me her real name. She had some warrants and she was placed under arrest.
Who was that?
Her name was Diamond Jones.
All right. Do you know what the warrants were for?
Yeah, there was one for assault, one for MDOP, and then like a alcohol violation warrant.
And you arrested her on those warrants?
Yes, I did.
And how did she respond to being arrested?
So when I told her she was under arrest, she started refusing. She tensed her body up, put her hands in front of her, disregarding me. My commands telling her to put her hands behind her back. Eventually, a struggle ensued. We fell to the ground. She continued to resist. After a short period of time, I got her arms behind her back and placed her into custody.
Did you require the assistance of other officers?
Yes, I had one other officer there helping me.
Was there also a state police trooper that had to assist?
Yes, so the state police arrived after she was in custody. I tried to put her in the back of my car and she was resisting to get in the car. So he and my other officer that works with me had to assist me get her into the backseat of my patrol vehicle.
Did you have to physically pick her up and put her in there?
Yeah, she was dragged from the other side of the vehicle. My partner went in from the opposite side and grabbed her from the back and then pulled her in.
Fair to say she did not go willingly.
Correct.
And did this result in any charges?
Yes, she was charged with resisting and obstructing.
As far as you know, that charge is still pending, correct?
Correct.
All right. Thank you, officer. I have no other questions.
Thank you. Ms. Ortega, any questions?
No questions. Thank you.
Ms. Lowry?
Yes. In your communications with Miss Jones, did the issue of her having potential warrants come up?
Yes.
And was she told that she would not be arrested unless they were for murder or something to that effect?
I believe so.
Okay. And was Miss Jones's biggest concern her children and being arrested in front of her children?
Yeah.
Did she indicate to you that the warrants were due to unpaid fines on old cases that she had?
I think that's what she said, but she was lying about her name at that time, so I couldn't believe anything she was saying.
And she was very emotional because her children. Did she appear to be very emotional because her children were with her?
Yeah.
All right. All right. Thank you. No other questions.
Ms. Cardenas, any questions?
Your Honor, I have no questions.
Mr. Berry, any questions?
No, Your Honor.
All right. Mr. Vanderhoek, any follow-up?
No, Your Honor. I'd ask that the officer be excused at this time.
Ms. Ortega, did you have any follow-up?
I did not. Thank you.
All right. Any objection to excusing Officer Pasternak?
No, Your Honor.
No, Your Honor.
All right. Thank you. You're excused.
Thank you.
Your Honor, I'd call Ashley Vader at this time. And are you familiar with Diamond Jones?
We have had 2 encounters.
All right. Was that during this 2024-2025 school year?
Yes, that was within the first week of this school year.
All right. Would you please tell the court about your first encounter with her?
My first encounter took place in our front office. I was assisting our secretary, and Miss Diamond approached the front table. She asked if my job that I was doing at that time was what I normally did at the school. I responded, no, I was just helping out our secretary. And she proceeded to explain that she did not like how I was addressing a student when trying to solve his problem. And she told me that I should just keep to my own job then.
That was her language?
Yes.
And was the student you were helping one of Ms. Jones' children?
No, it was another student.
All right. Ms. Jones' children attend the Kent Hills Elementary?
They attended until October 31st.
I see. So this child was really none of Ms. Jones' business in your interaction with this child?
That is correct.
All right. Was that the extent of your interaction with her that day?
That was the extent of that day.
And could you please tell the court about your second interaction with her?
The next day, directly following, I was in the hallway at the beginning of the day. Miss Jones chose to walk his classroom. I was standing at the end of the hallway, and on her way out, she said, "Good, you're doing your job." And then she walked away.
Did you ever witness her raising her voice or yelling at you or anyone else at the school?
Just my interactions with her.
Okay. You're presenting this as a pretty matter of fact, but was it more escalated than what you described it as?
It was alarming how she appeared to seek me out the second day and take the time to address me and then keep walking.
Sorry, the record should reflect that Ms. Jones has turned her camera off. Ms. Jones, are you able to turn your camera back on? Ms. Jones, are you still there?
I think she is there. We're trying to communicate also via text, so perhaps that turns the camera off. I'm not sure.
Okay. Go ahead, Mr. Vanderhoek. Sorry about that.
Well, I mean, was this interaction significant enough that you alerted the principal?
Yes, I notified our principal at the time upon the second incident that this was our second altercation that we've had. He then reached out to her directly and told her that if she was going to address staff the way that she would not be allowed back into the building.
And was she in fact ever allowed back into the building?
Not to my knowledge.
All right.
Your Honor, I'm sorry. I would object to that statement based on hearsay.
Mr. Vanderhoek?
All right, I'll rephrase. So the principal addressed Ms. Jones. You observed the principal addressing Ms. Jones, is that correct?
Yes, he was speaking to her in the lobby.
All right, and you, without repeating what was said, you heard what was said?
Yes.
Okay, and after that, Ms. Jones was never, or you've never seen her at school since then, correct?
That is correct. I have not seen her come back into the building.
Did you ever observe Ms. Jones interacting with any other staff members or students at school?
No.
And that's the extent of your interaction with Ms. Jones?
Yes.
Thank you. I have no other questions for Ms. Vader.
All right, thank you. Ms. Ortega,
No questions, Your Honor. Thank you.
Ms. Lowry,
Was Miss Jones in the school that day to assist in the classroom with her son?
No. She was not a registered employee with the district.
So she was dropping him off that morning?
She was dropping him off. I'm not sure why she was staying in the office.
Okay. And have you seen her at school for pickup to pick up her daughter and her son?
No.
All right. Are you usually outside when there's pickup and drop-offs?
I am at busing, so the only time I would see them is if they were taking the bus, and I believe they were both pickups.
Okay. So if you haven't seen her at school, that it's possible that she's been at the school.
Yes.
All right. And do you know, did Miss Jones apologize to you for the
No.
interaction?
No.
Okay. At any point in time?
Nope.
She did not? All right. Thank you.
Mr. Berry, any questions?
No questions, Your Honor.
Ms. Cardenas?
I have no questions.
All right. Mr. Vanderkolk, any follow-up?
No, Your Honor.
Ms. Ortega, any follow-up?
No, Your Honor.
All right. Any objection to Ms. Vader being excused?
Yes, ma'am.
No, I wasn't asking you, Ms. Jones.
Your Honor, can I talk to my client briefly?
All right. Well, before we do that, can we excuse Ms. Vader, or do you want me to hold off?
Well, it sounds
Yes.
like maybe I would
I'd
ask
that she-
to hold off since I can't
Okay.
talk to my daughter or to my client and Miss Jones.
right.
And
All right, we'll stop recess so that Ms. Lowry could speak with her client, or her client could speak with her, I should say. And Ms. Lowry, you asked for some follow-up questions of Ms. Vader.
yes, please, Your Honor.
All right, Ms. Vader, you're still under oath.
Thank you. Miss Vader, do you recall walking a young girl out to meet her mother? I think it might have been the following day after one of the encounters. And Miss Jones was there, and she did apologize for kind of being animated and for her actions and talking to you the day before.
Your Honor, I don't object to counsel's testifying instead of asking a question.
Well, I think it's cross-examination, so I think leading's allowed.
Very well.
Maybe you want to break it down, though. It's a bit compound.
Sure, thank you. Ms. Vader, you testified you don't recall that Ms. Jones had apologized to you, and I'm just trying to see if you recollect, given more specific circumstances with walking a young female student out to her mother and encountering Ms. Jones, and if she apologized to you.
I do not. I do not recall walking a young child out to meet a mom.
Okay. And do you recall seeing Ms. Jones at school and speaking to her about SC starting preschool?
I do recall a conversation revolving around preschool. I believe that mom had left her phone in the cafeteria, so I was walking with her.
Okay, so you have had other conversations with Ms. Jones outside
That
of
is
those
the only one that I recall. Yes.
But that's in addition to the other two that you said were the only two
Yes.
that you recall?
Yes,
Okay.
that is correct.
All right. Thank you. No other questions.
Mr. Vanderkolk?
Yes, Ms. Vader, could you clarify the nature of that interaction that you had on the first day where Ms. Jones swore at you?
Yes, that was our third day of school. And she was very loud. I was very taken off guard by the shouting and the swearing, especially when that was not a position that I'm normally in. And so it was very overwhelming for me.
And is part of that because this child was not related to Ms. Jones and had nothing to do with you or Ms. Jones? She was inserting herself into your business?
That is correct. It kind of felt like I was blindsided because it was a different child that was in a different grade than her own children.
And this incident with the cell phone, was that still the first week of school?
Yes,
All right. So after the principal spoke with her, you've never seen her back at school again?
that is correct.
Thank you. I have no other questions.
All right, Ms. Ortega?
No questions, Your Honor. Thank you.
Mr. Berry?
No questions.
Ms. Cardenas?
I have no questions.
Ms. Lowry?
Well, I guess I just have one question. SC did not start school right away, preschool. Is that correct?
I'm not sure, to my knowledge.
But are you certain that your third conversation with her was in the first 2 weeks of school?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Mr. Vanderkolk? Any follow-up?
No, Your Honor. People are
Mr.
us. With,
Mr. Ortega?
as far as this witness is concerned.
Ms. Ortega?
Nothing, Your Honor. Thank you.
Mr. Berry?
No, Your Honor.
Ms. Cardenas?
Nothing, Your Honor.
All right, now may this witness be excused.
Yes, Your Honor.
Yes. No objection.
No objection.
All right, thank you for your time, Ms. Vader. You're excused.
Your Honor, the people call Sherry Powers.
you. Mr. Vandergrill. All right.
Thank you. Ms. Bowers, how are you employed?
I work at Wellspring Lutheran Services.
In what capacity?
At the time of Mrs. Jones, I was the team lead with the Kent Reunification Program.
And did you offer services to Diamond Jones?
Yes, she was in our care from March 27 to July 25.
And what issues did you address with Ms. Jones?
We had two primary goals. One was that Mrs. Jones needed to demonstrate the ability to parent her children, meeting basic needs. And the second goal was that she was able to show that she can prepare for future goals and improving her life circumstances.
And what were the life circumstances that she needed to improve?
She wanted help with getting her GED, her driver's license, and some other basic issues that she wanted to improve herself.
And you assisted her or attempted to assist her in those areas?
Yes.
And what progress, if any, did she make in those areas?
Very little.
Okay, could you expand upon that?
Yes. Mrs. Jones, when we closed her case, she wanted help getting her GED. That was not able to be completed due to lack of education. She wanted to get her driver's license. We were not able to complete that. And then we were also talking about healthy relationships and how to avoid future domestic violence incidents. Ms. Jones was reluctant to discuss that. However, we did have a safety plan in place. We were not able to fully explore that area.
All right. When you say regarding the GED, lack of education prevented that. Well, I mean, isn't GED obtaining the education needed?
Yes, that's correct. It was my understanding that when she applied for cash assistance program, she had to go through an assessment, and she was told that her education level was not an appropriate level to pursue a GED, and she needed additional education classes to get her there.
Were you able to assist her in getting those additional education classes?
We did not. That was at the end of our case when we had to close.
Okay, so there was a time limit?
Yes, we are a 4-month program.
A what program?
4 months.
I see. And what prevented her from obtaining her driver's license?
We just were focused on other issues. There were other obstacles and barriers to her success, and so we prioritized other things.
All right. What were those other priorities?
Other priorities were basic needs, such as maintaining food stamps, getting employment, establishing daycare, school enrollment, utilities, things like that.
Was she behind in her utilities?
Yes.
Do you remember how far?
I believe, I can't recall exactly, but it was in the realm of $1,500 behind on her consumer's bill. We were unable to pay that at the time. So she had a deal with her landlord where she would do extra work around the apartment complex in exchange for him paying her consumer's bill current.
Was she brought up to or able to pay off the debt?
I'm not aware that she was.
Okay. Did she lose her housing because of the utilities?
Not that I'm aware of.
All right. Were you able to assist her with daycare?
We did. We found several daycare centers. She submitted enrollment and application papers, but failed to follow through, and then changed her mind while we were in the home. So it was not needed. She decided she didn't want to work through the summer and she wanted to stay home with her children. Therefore, daycare was not needed.
Well, how would she have income if she wasn't working?
She was applying for cash assistance at the time.
Do you know if it was granted?
It was denied.
All right. So she did not seek employment while you had the case?
She was employed in the beginning of the case. That employment ended and she did not seek any additional employment.
Do we know why it ended?
It was a short-term employment opportunity and it just ended because of the employer.
And she didn't seek employment after that?
No.
So after she was denied cash assistance, how did she sustain herself?
That was the issue in place. We worked very hard to find her food pantries. We worked to pay some of her bills for her. She had friends and family. She sought extra help through local churches and community services.
Does that include local food banks?
Yes.
All right. When you closed out the case, did there appear to be any change in her circumstance as far as providing for her basic needs?
Not completely, no.
Just partially?
Yes. Okay. We were sure that she knew what to do to find employment. She knew how to find daycare. She needed some extra assistance with foster care for that.
Well, the kids weren't in foster care at the time, though, correct?
They were still, their foster care case was still open at the time we closed.
Right. So she didn't have employment when you closed, correct?
Right.
Do you know if she was receiving food stamps?
She was. They had been cut off at some point. She had only to keep an appointment to get them reinstated.
But she didn't do so?
It is not clear whether she kept that appointment or not.
Okay. And even though you offered her help with employment, she declined to pursue that, correct?
Correct.
You don't know the state of her utilities at the time the case was closed in June of 2024, correct?
Correct.
So as far as we know, she might still owe quite a bit.
Correct.
All right. Was she successfully discharged from the Kent Reunification Program?
The family was considered intact when we closed, yes.
I understand, but did she complete the program goals?
She did not complete her program goals completely.
Okay, so that would not be successful, correct?
Correct.
Was she ever referred to counseling services?
She was.
All right. And did she consistently engage in such services?
She did not. She had a therapist right when we began services. That therapist dropped her. We tried to find another therapist. Ms. Jones was not interested in resuming therapy.
What issues would have been addressed in therapy?
We had concerns about her executive functioning, which means her ability to maintain essential care, daily tasks, keeping track of what needed to be done.
And what was the basis for that concern?
She had a hard time doing things in between visits with the KRP program. She did not complete her goals. She did not partner with us on completing those goals. She had a hard time keeping track of appointments and staying focused on her objectives.
Did she ever tell you why she struggled with these issues?
She did. She told us on several occasions that she just had a hard time thinking and that her brain did not work completely the way she wanted, which is why we recommended therapy.
But she chose not to engage in that therapy, correct?
Correct.
Did she ever tell you why she chose not to engage in that therapy after she admitted she had a hard time thinking?
My recollection is that she had a bad experience with her previous therapist and she viewed all therapists to be the same and she wasn't interested in resuming a relationship like that.
Do you know why her first therapist declined to continue service with her?
I did have a conversation with her early in the case. I was told that she
Objection, Your Honor. I'm sorry, hearsay.
I believe she's testifying as to what Ms. Diamond told her. Is that right, Ms. Bowers?
No, I was going to
Okay.
say what the therapist said.
Okay, then I'll go sustain the objection.
All right. Did Ms. Jones ever tell you why the therapist would no longer work with her?
She told me that she didn't like the therapist and that it was not working for her.
Okay. Without repeating what the therapist told you, was that consistent with what the therapist did communicate with you?
That was not.
Yeah. Regardless of what the reason was, it was Ms. Jones that chose not to continue as well, correct?
Yes,
and you
correct.
you found other potential therapists to work with her,
Yes.
correct? But
Yeah.
even though she admitted she had a hard time thinking, she chose not to address this issue. Fair to say?
Correct.
Do you believe that that issue would interfere with her ability to safely parent the children?
It was a concern.
Did she overcome that concern at the time you closed out the case?
No.
Now, you said that she was reluctant to discuss relationships with you. Is that correct?
Yes.
Did you have concerns about her relationships?
Yes. One of our primary goals is to look at the reason for the removal, and that is our primary concern that we need to address. And in her case, it was a domestic violence situation.
So removal would have been one of the reasons for the removal was a primary concern?
Yes.
And that would need to be addressed and worked through in order for reunification to happen, correct?
Correct.
And since the name of your program is the Kent Reunification Program, that's the primary goal?
Yes.
But you were unable to work through this due to her reluctance to address this?
Correct. I was able to say,
Your Honor.
Ms.
I was
Bowers?
able to, go ahead.
Hold on, Ms. Bowers.
I just said that was a leading question, Your Honor.
I agree, Mr. Vanderkolk. You've been leading quite a bit.
Right. I'll rephrase.
All right.
In light of the goal of reunification, could you please describe Ms. Jones' progress or lack thereof in that area?
Regarding the domestic violence, she was reluctant to talk about it. She stated that Mr. Gregory was no longer in her life, and therefore she did not have any concerns about that. She did willingly safety plan with me about people coming into the home, but would not discuss it further.
Were you aware of whether she had engaged in any other relationships since Mr. Gregory's incarceration?
We were not aware of any additional relationships.
Okay. So you made a safety plan with her, correct?
Correct.
And did that name anybody that wasn't supposed to be in the home?
No.
Thank you. I have no other questions.
Thank you. Ms. Ortega, any questions?
A couple, Your Honor. Ms. Bowers, in your work with Ms. Jones, would you describe her as combative or hostile at all?
Yes.
Okay. Did she appear to be able to regulate her emotions well?
No.
And then did you have any indication in your work with her? Well, let me ask this. Did you work in her home with her?
Yes.
Were there
I'm
any
sorry to
indications?
interrupt, but Your Honor, could we bring Ms. Jones' video back up? I think the court needs to see all the parties and their reactions and interactions.
Ms. Jones, can you turn your video on, please? Thank you. Go ahead, Ms. Ortega.
Thank you, Your Honor. In your work with her in her home, did you see any indications of potential substance abuse?
She had marijuana use in the home. We safety planned around that.
Okay. Did she appear to be following that safety plan?
As far as we could tell.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Ms. Lowry.
Thank you. You said that your service is for 4 months. Is that correct?
Correct.
Are you able to do extensions of services?
We are. We can extend up to 6 months.
All right. And why was Ms. Jones not offered an extension?
We had planned on offering an extension, but then changed our minds at the end because we felt that Mrs. Jones was not fully participating and partnering with our program.
Had Ms. Jones been told that she was going to be getting a 2-month extension?
We were, because that was the original plan. Yes, she did.
So she was under the impression that she would have 2 more months of services with KRP.
Correct.
But then you decided to cancel and close her out.
Yeah.
So that was a surprise for Ms. Jones.
It was.
All right. And you indicated you were in the home. The children had been returned to Ms. Jones at this point when you were working with her, correct?
Correct. Mm-hmm.
And there was no request for removal upon your case closure.
No.
So you assessed the children to be safe in Ms. Jones's care.
Correct.
So even without successful completion per your standards, the children were safe in the care of their mother. Is that correct?
As far as we knew, yes.
Right. The utility bill, was that a past due bill from prior years?
Correct, yes.
Okay, so that was not a current bill. This has been a bill that Ms. Jones has been trying to pay off over time.
Correct.
All right. And she was able to problem solve and work with her landlord in order to work off and help pay for that?
She worked with her landlord to pay for current services. I do not know that she had any plan in place to pay off past due.
Okay. And she was able to utilize community resources, churches, family members, friends when she needed to.
Correct.
Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
So her children had food. They were attending school every day. Is that correct?
There was some signs of food insecurity, but every time it was mentioned, she was very willing to go seek and find food.
All right. And when the children were returned home, you mentioned Ms. Jones not wanting to get employment. This was right after having not had her children in her care for months, correct?
Correct.
So it wasn't that Ms. Jones didn't want to get employment. It was that she had just had her children had been removed for her for months, and now they've been returned to her, and she wanted to spend as much time as possible while she found the best job for herself. Would you agree?
Objection.
That's
It
what
calls
she
for
said.
speculation as to Ms. Jones' thoughts and motivations, Your Honor. That's a more appropriate question for Ms. Jones.
I'll sustain the objection.
Did Ms. Jones indicate why she wanted her intentions for delaying employment at that time?
She wanted to stay home with her kids so that she could be with them over the summer.
Okay. So your program closed. Oh, I know what I was going to ask you. As far as the counselor, did you personally make referrals for counseling, or is that something that foster care did?
We didn't personally make any referrals. I mentioned some therapists who would be a good option and a good fit, and offered to help Mrs. Jones find an appropriate therapist.
Okay, but you didn't actually make any calls or anything like that with Ms. Jones?
No.
Do you know if SC started preschool later than EG?
The kids were not in school at the time we closed.
Okay. Were you able to help her figure out what classes she would have needed to take to build up that education so that she could apply for a GED later down the road?
Yes.
And in regards to the DV, Mr. Gregory was incarcerated throughout the entire time that you were involved. Is that correct?
I'm
Correct.
sorry to interrupt, Your Honor. Ms. Jones keeps turning off her video for some reason. Could we have that turned back on?
Ms. Jones, you need to keep your video on. Ms. Jones, can you turn your video back on, please?
I think when Ms. Jones is sending me text messages so that we can communicate, that maybe.
Yes, I'm talking to my lawyer. Sorry.
Okay, so all right. So when you're texting your lawyer, you have to turn your video off.
It turns off automatically. I don't even mean no disrespect.
Okay, all right, that's fine. Thank you. If you could raise your hand just so that we know what's going on. Do you know how to do that on the Zoom? There's a button you can push to raise your hand.
No, ma'am, I do not.
All right, I'll leave it to Ms. Lowry then to let us know.
Yep. All right. And so you could have given her an additional 2 months worth of services, but after telling her that you would, the agency decided not to. Is that correct?
Objection. That's been asked and answered, Your Honor.
I'm sorry, Ms. Lowry, could you repeat the question?
Sure. I know. I just asked if that they had worked 4 months and if they could have extended for 2 more months. And I just wanted to clarify that they told Ms. Jones that they would do 2 more months and then they declined to do so.
I think that ground was covered.
Okay. All right. No problem. Then you can strike that. Were you the only person in the home working with Ms. Jones?
No, I have a partner on this case.
Okay. You mentioned that she had a hard time keeping appointments. Did you provide her with like a calendar book?
Yes, she had a whiteboard that she kept in her home, and I reviewed it weekly every time I was in the home.
Okay. Was that something that the agency provided or she already had that on her own?
I believe she got it from foster care.
Okay. Was it a calendar?
It was just a big whiteboard with markers that she could keep track of things.
Okay. Do you think it would have been helpful for her to have a paper calendar that you guys could put your appointments in if she was having difficulty keeping track of all the service providers and their meetings?
We did offer her that. She said she preferred to use the whiteboard.
But you said that she willingly worked with you on the safety plan. Is that correct?
Correct.
And did Ms. Jones have, you said that she wanted to improve herself and her family situation?
She did.
Okay. All right. I don't have any other questions.
Great, thank you. Lost track of where I am now. Ms. Cardenas, any questions?
No, Your Honor.
Mr. Berry?
No questions, Your Honor.
Ms. Ortega?
No, Your Honor, thank you.
Mr. Vanderkook?
Thank you, Your Honor. When you gave her the notice that there was going to be a 2-month extension, did Ms. Jones change her behavior and her interaction with you? Did you become less hostile and start cooperating with the services that you were offering?
No.
All right. So the fact that your agency decided not to continue on for another 2 months, was that just out of practicality?
It was decided that based on the previous 4 months that she was not fully participating and partnering with our program. And therefore we had done everything that we could to meet those goals.
Okay. And in light of the lack of change on her part when she was told she was getting a 2-month extension, there was really no point in continuing?
Objection.
Ms. Lowry?
Sorry, I thought I had I just said objection leading. I believe that was a leading question, Your Honor.
I'll sustain.
Good. Ms. Bowers, do you believe that relying on food pantries and the generosity of others is a good long-term plan for supporting your children?
It is not long-term plan, no.
Okay. Did Ms. Jones ever express having or verbalize what her long-term plan might be after the summer of 2024 for providing for her children?
At the time we closed, she had changed her mind and decided that she wanted her kids to go to school. She knew how to keep an appointment with DHS to reinstate food stamps. So we felt that she knew what she needed to do.
Did she ever demonstrate that while you had the case open?
She did not.
When you closed the case, did you have concerns about her ability to safely parent and provide for the children?
Yes, we did. And we made that clear to foster care.
And when you were asked about whether she verbalized the desire to improve herself and her situation, did her actions back these words up?
Yeah, Mrs. Jones always showed a real willingness and an eagerness to improve herself. She just had a hard time focusing on what she needed to do. And she often got sidetracked by other things and couldn't focus on the most important issues.
So it's fair to say that her actions did not back up her words then, correct?
Correct.
Thank you. I have no other questions.
Ms. Ortega, any follow-up?
No, Your Honor, thank you.
Ms. Lauer, any follow-up?
So you indicated that you had concern when you closed, but you made it clear to foster care of your concerns?
Yes.
And there weren't any possible resources available at KRP that you could offer to Ms. Jones in the preceding 2 months?
We made our recommendations to Ms. Jones that she just needed to get employment and get food stamps reinstated.
And had Ms. Jones been employed before?
She was at the beginning of the case.
So she's capable of getting employment. Was that your assessment?
Correct.
All right. All right, thank you.
Ms. Ortega.
No follow-up, thank you.
All right. Mr. Vanderkolk.
Nothing further for this witness, Your Honor.
Ms. Cardenas.
I have nothing, Your Honor.
Mr. Barry.
No questions, Your Honor.
All right. May this witness be excused?
Yes, Your Honor.
No objection.
No objection.
Objection.
All right. Thank you very much for your time, Ms. Bowers. You're excused.
Your Honor, I'd call Emily Nicholson as my last witness. When did you start working with Ms. Jones on this case?
In September of 2023.
All right. You prepared a parent agency treatment plan for her?
Yes, that's correct.
And at the time you started this case, the children had been removed from her, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And they were reunified in May of 2024?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. Was Ms. Jones able to overcome any of the barriers to reunification after the children were removed? No, strike that. Did Ms. Jones struggle with the issues that were to be addressed in the parent agency treatment plan?
Ms. Jones was able to get housing, as well as she did have employment for a little while before it did end because it was temporary. And then she did not find employment after that job had ended.
And that job ended in June of 2024?
Yes, that's correct.
So we heard testimony from Ms. Bowers about her wanting to stay home with the children. Was that your experience?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. Did you encourage her to seek employment?
I did.
Okay. And what was her response to you?
Ms. Jones indicated to me that she wanted to find employment that had a higher payment.
Oh, okay. It wasn't that she didn't want employment altogether. It was that she wanted higher pay?
Yes, that's correct.
Right. And after the KRP program closed down, did you assist her in that?
I did have multiple conversations with Ms. Jones and encouraged her to continue to look for employment. But she reported to me that she wanted to spend her time with her children.
Okay. Do you know if she had the wherewithal, the ability to find employment?
She did show me one time that she did complete online applications, but that was only one time that she had shown me verification of that.
Okay, so she had the ability to do so, but she chose not to?
That's correct.
Did you also encourage her to find a therapist or refer her to some therapists?
I did, yes. I had a conversation with Miss Jones about re-engaging in therapy services. Miss Jones indicated to me that she wanted to find her own therapist.
Did she do so?
She did not.
Did she ever tell you why she chose not to?
She did not.
Okay, and do you see that as a matter of concern?
I do.
What were the issues that you would expect her to address in therapy?
The agency would like to see Miss Jones work through her trauma in therapy, her anger management, as well from her history of domestic violence and other goals that her and her therapist would have made.
Did she ever open up to you about the history of domestic violence that she was involved with?
She did not, no.
Okay. Is the fact that Mr. Gregory is locked up right now mean that domestic violence is no longer an issue for her that she needs to work through?
No, that's no.
Okay. It's fair to say that she's been traumatized by domestic violence.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. And in order to work through that, she would have to open up and discuss it with somebody.
Yes, that's correct.
Has she demonstrated a willingness to do so far?
She has not, no.
Okay. We heard testimony about food stamps and cash assistance. Did she ever follow up with the appointment with DHHS to reapply for those?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the end of the question.
Did Ms. Jones ever follow up with appointments with DHHS to apply or reapply for those benefits?
I do not believe so, no.
She never reported to you that she has?
I do know that she had food stamps. I believe it was around $500 a month that she was receiving. I do know that she also had to follow up with DHS regarding childcare that she did not follow through with.
All right. Do you know if she's currently receiving food stamps?
To my knowledge, she was, but I'm not sure if she is at this time.
Are you aware of whether she's receiving cash assistance?
No, I do not believe so.
Okay. She never reported to you or showed you documentation that she is in fact receiving cash assistance?
No.
Do you know how she supports herself?
Through her food stamps, I believe.
Well, she has to pay rent and utilities, correct?
That's correct.
Do you know how she pays those?
Ms. Jones did report to me that she's staying in a hotel currently that her church is paying for.
Okay. Do you know how long the church is willing to keep paying for this hotel?
I do not.
Do you believe that's a good long-term plan in light of the need for reunification with her children?
I do not.
Has she ever expressed to you a plan for obtaining permanent housing?
Ms. Jones and I have had multiple conversations regarding future housing. Ms. Jones has indicated different options. One of them was her staying in a room at a friend's house. She reported to me that her church was also willing to help pay for either the first month's rent or security deposit for an apartment. And she also had the option to move to Saginaw with the children's caregiver and move in with her.
All right. So did she ever express how she would pay for this apartment that the church is willing to pay the security deposit on after that first month?
No, she did not.
Right. And do you know if this room with a friend would be appropriate for her and 2 children?
I do not.
Okay. And do you know if this home in Saginaw will be appropriate for both her and her children?
The home in Saginaw would be appropriate.
Do you know why she hasn't moved there so far then, if it is appropriate?
Ms. Jones did not confirm an actual plan to move to Saginaw. She reported to me that she wanted to keep her options open in Grand Rapids and that she wanted to stay in the Grand Rapids area. So that's why oh, sorry.
It's okay. Has she taken any actions to stabilize her life as far as, employment, dealing with her trauma, and housing stability here in Grand Rapids?
Ms. Jones has reported to me that she is working at Wendy's. Currently, she has reported that she works from 2 to 10 p.m. With Wednesdays and Thursdays as her days off. Ms. Jones has reported to me that she's working with her church and other housing services and in the Grand Rapids area. And I am also looking to refer Ms. Jones for counseling services.
Well, we heard testimony from Ms. Bowers that she didn't trust any therapists, that they're all the same, and she didn't want to talk about it. Has that changed with Ms. Jones?
I've had conversations with Ms. Jones regarding counseling, and she seemed to be at least open to it.
Has she ever acknowledged the trauma that she's experienced as a result of the domestic violence that she was involved with?
No, she has not.
Okay, that would be an important first step to make meaningful progress in therapy, correct?
That would be correct.
Has she provided you any documentation of this alleged job at Wendy's?
She has not.
Have you asked her for such?
I have.
Okay, and why hasn't she provided it to you?
That is unknown. I'm not sure why.
So, as far as we know, that's, I mean, okay, she's in the camera pointing to a Wendy's logo, but is that proof that she's employed and proof of what her wage is?
It is not.
Okay. We don't know how long she's worked there.
She did report to me that she had job interviews in early November.
Okay, so was that be a job interview at Wendy's then?
I believe so, yes. She reported that she had multiple interviews.
Did she ever provide documentation as to what she's earning hourly now?
She has not.
Do we have any documentation as to how many hours per week she's working?
I do not have that.
Okay, so we don't know if she's earning enough to support both herself and 2 children at this time, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. She said you testified that she was willing to engage with a therapist. Has she found this therapist that she said she wanted to seek out on her own?
No.
Okay, so how long do you think we should wait for her to find a therapist and start engaging in counseling?
It is my goal to send in the referral for counseling by the end of this week. So I am hopeful that she will be able to start therapy services within the next couple of weeks.
You know why she has been resistant, or she ever tell you why she was resistant before, but now she's decided that she is willing to talk to a therapist?
No, she has not.
Okay. So I asked you about what steps she may have taken to stabilize her areas of need, and you referenced this church, but do we have any proof, any documentation from the church as to how long they're willing to support her until she gets back on her feet?
No, I do not.
Okay, so that remains a big unknown, correct?
That's correct.
Right. Did you give her any housing referrals?
I did. I talked with Ms. Jones of different housing resources, and I provided her a housing resource list.
And did she utilize any of those resources?
No, she did not.
Did she ever tell you why she did not?
No, she did not.
Okay. Does it seem like she wants you to just take her word for it that this church out there is going to help her and that's good enough?
I believe so.
Okay. Do you know what the name of this church is?
The record should reflect that Ms. Jones has left. I don't know if it was voluntarily or she lost her connection. It is now 3:29 and I do have a 3:30. So I think we're going to have to continue this at a different date.
Very well.
Ms. Gibson, you can stop recording.
So Ms. Nicholson, you are back on the stand and you're still under oath. Do you understand that?
I do.
Okay. Mr. Vanderkoop.
Thank you, Your Honor. Ms. Nicholson, you had testified earlier that Ms. Jones is staying in a hotel that's being paid for a local church. Is that correct?
She had the opportunity yes, she was. I do believe that she has been staying with a friend as well.
Right. Did Ms. Jones ever provide you with documentation that this church was in fact paying for the hotel when she was staying there?
No, she did not.
Were you ever able to view the room?
No. I did pick her up from the hotel to take her to her parenting time visit.
Okay. Was anybody else in the hotel room with her?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay. So we don't know if this church was actually paying for it, correct?
That's correct.
All right. Did you ever ask her for documentation?
I did not.
I see. Have you been able to view this friend's house that she's currently staying at?
I have picked her up from that address as well, but I have not viewed the inside of the home.
So we don't know if it's appropriate for her and 2 children?
That's correct.
And you said you picked her up to take her to a therapist, is that correct?
To her parenting time visit
Her
with the
parenting.
children.
Okay. Now you had testified earlier that she declined, or we heard from Ms. Bowers that she declined to continue with a therapist through the, I believe it was the KRP or FRP program, and she wanted to find her own therapist. Has she done so?
No, she has not. I have put in a referral for Arbor Circle for counseling services. However, they responded back with, because of her history of domestic violence, they encouraged me to put in a referral for the YWCA, which I have completed that referral and submitted that one, and I'm waiting to hear back from them.
Has Ms. Jones showed any initiative in choosing her own therapist, as she stated to Ms. Bowers?
No, she has not.
Has she admitted that she being Ms. Jones, has she admitted that domestic violence is an issue that needs to be addressed by her?
She has not.
But that would be necessary for her to make any progress should she start with a YWCA, is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Do you see this as a barrier?
I do.
Has she made any progress in obtaining stable housing?
I have not seen any documentation that she has housing, but she has reported to me that she is looking for an apartment. I do know that she had a couple of showings scheduled, but I do not know how those went.
Now, you helped her or were present when she was moving out of her last apartment, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Do you know why she moved out of that apartment?
Her lease was up.
You know why she didn't renew that?
I believe the lease was a voucher, so her time, the year was up.
Okay, and so the voucher was not renewed?
No, it was not.
Was anybody else present in that apartment when she was moving out?
Yes, there was one, there was a male individual who was there.
Was that Isaac Vanderwell?
Yes, that's correct.
And that's the individual whose vehicle she was in when she was arrested on the multiple warrants, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Do you know if there's been any domestic violence in that relationship?
I do not know.
Do you know if that relationship is continuing?
I do not.
Now, did you make attempts to visit with the children privately before their removal?
I did, yes.
And how did that go?
At times, Miss Jones did not allow me to see the children privately, but the other times I did, and the children seemed to be doing okay.
Did Ms. Jones ever tell you why she denied letting you see them on the multiple occasions when she didn't?
At one of the times she reported to me that because they were minors, and that she wanted to be present.
So were the children home alone then when she said she wanted to be present?
No, she was home with the children.
Okay, so if she was present, what would prohibit you from visiting with the children since she was there?
I'm not sure.
Were you able to successfully, prior to the removal, were you successfully able to engage her in services?
We did have KRP in place until she was unsuccessfully discharged.
And that was due to her lack of engagement?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. I have no other questions.
Thank you. Ms. Lowry.
Thank you. To follow up with some of those questions, there were no new allegations of domestic violence since the children had been in Ms. Jones's care. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So if that was a barrier, it was a barrier at the same time that the agency returned the children home to mom. Correct?
That's correct.
Okay. So a YWCA referral had never been made until just recently. Is that correct?
That's correct, because Ms. Jones, she was in counseling services in April, and since April, she has not been in services because KRP was in place and there were counseling services available with KRP.
Okay. So the request for new counseling even though she hadn't been in with a specific counselor since April, has not been a request since April, correct? Like she had services that the agency felt were sufficient through KRP.
Yes, there were counseling services through KRP that Ms. Jones was not engaging in.
Okay. So, but we already discussed, even after KRP unsuccessfully discharged, the agency did not believe that the children were at any harm in Ms. Jones's care and did not request removal or a new petition, correct?
Yeah, I'm going to object. This has been asked and answered multiple times at the previous adjudication, or the initial adjudication.
Ms. Lowry?
Well, I don't have all my notes. I think I went over it, but
I think you did as well, so I think you can move on.
Okay. All right. But so same with the DV. This was, as you said, not an issue, a new issue, correct?
That's correct.
All right. Have you told Ms. Jones about your referral to the Y?
I did inform Ms. Jones that I was putting in a referral for the Arbor Circle. And then once I heard back from Arbor Circle, they informed me to reach out to the YWCA.
But have you informed Ms. Jones of that it was going to be the YWCA reaching out to her instead of Arbor Circle?
Not yet, because I have not heard back from the YWCA yet, but I did inform her about the Arbor Circle referral.
Okay. And did Ms. Jones indicate to you that her plan, if she was going to get a counselor on her own, would be to go to Network 180 or Arbor Circle and follow through with counseling?
She did not know.
Okay. All right. So now, once you hear back from YWCA, you don't know if they've accepted her or not?
That's correct.
Okay. Has Ms. Jones provided you with documentation of her employment at Wendy's?
She has sent me a screenshot of, I believe it's her work schedule app, her employee account.
Okay. Is that sufficient for the agency?
It is, but I will be requesting Ms. Jones to send me her pay stubs as ongoing verification.
Has Ms. Jones indicated that she doesn't get pay stubs? Her money is uploaded onto a work card.
She has not.
Okay. All right. But you can work with her with either looking into the card or whatever other verification you need.
Yes, that's correct.
All right. But does the agency believe that Ms. Jones is employed and that has been verified?
At this time, yes.
Okay. Going back, there had been a question in regards to why wasn't Ms. Jones living in Saginaw right now? And you said, I believe you said, I don't know. Would you agree that Ms. Jones's plan to move to Saginaw involved her living with the children at their placement with Ms. Tina Lindsay?
That was an option for Ms. Jones, yes.
Okay, so that was where she has support, family support. And if the children are placed there right now, she is not able to be placed there or to live in Saginaw with Miss Lindsay. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. So that would be the reason that she's not living in Saginaw currently. Would you agree?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. But she had discussed with you that on November 1st, she had planned to move with the children to Miss Lindsay's home. Is that correct?
I do not recall it being on November 1st.
Okay. You said you picked her up from a friend's house, but you didn't view the house. Did you ask to view the house?
I did not, because there was an individual outside who was yelling at me through the window that they had to leave.
Okay. All right. So it wasn't requested, and Ms. Jones never indicated that this is her housing currently that she intends to stay at?
That's correct.
All right. And I believe you said you never asked for verification of the hotel and never asked to go inside and view the hotel room?
That's correct.
Ms. Jones did have sufficient food stamps to provide food for the children in addition to utilizing resources?
She did, yes.
Were the children attending doctor's appointments in school regularly?
They did attend their appointments that were scheduled by the agency.
Ms. Jones brought them to the appointments?
She did.
Okay. And were those appointments that were scheduled prior to them when they were in foster care?
They were scheduled after they were returned home with Ms. Jones.
The warrants that Ms. Jones had when she was arrested, that she was arrested for, those were all old cases that the agency was aware of, correct?
That's correct.
And so that wasn't anything new. The agency knew that she had warrants.
Oh, I'm sorry, I misunderstood. No, we did not know that she had warrants out.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, you answered it correct. The agency knew that these were prior charges, that she had prior cases of those
Prior.
cases.
Yes, I'm sorry.
Okay. All right. I don't think Miss Jones knew she had warrants, but okay. So those weren't anything new. And Miss Jones was able to have her children placed with her mother following her arrest?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. And was that an appropriate placement for them for that time period?
Yes, it was.
Why did the agency request to have them removed if she was able to place them with her, with a relative?
Because her, that relative, she could not care for the children long term, and it was unknown of when Miss Jones would be released.
Did you discuss how long term was?
No, I didn't. Oh, I'm sorry.
With her mother, you did not?
No, I did not.
Okay. Okay, I don't have any other questions.
Thank you, Ms. Ortega.
Thank you, Your Honor. Did you prepare a report stated November 26, 2024, case service plan and parent agency treatment plan?
I did, yes.
At this time, I'd like to offer those as Exhibit 1.
Any objection?
No objection.
No, Your Honor.
All right, they're admitted.
Thank you. Prior to removal this time, were the children active in any services, do you know?
They were not, other than KRP being in the home.
Do you know if the children had been receiving any kind of counseling?
No, they were not.
Are you aware if Miss Jones refused counseling for them?
In the past, she has.
Are they set up with services now?
Not currently, no.
Is this something that you'd be recommending should this case move forward?
Yes, that's correct.
And what about trauma assessments? Is that something that the agency would look into for these children?
Yes.
It's my understanding they were present during Miss Jones' arrest.
Yes, that's correct.
It's also my understanding that child EG was with his father for most of his life primarily. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Until his father's incarceration?
That's correct.
And does he know the current caregiver is the paternal grandmother? Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And does he have a strong relationship with that caregiver?
He does, yes.
Okay. And then both children are currently placed with that caregiver. Is that correct?
Yes.
Is employment, I'm going to go back to that. There was some mention that Miss Jones wanted to spend the summer with the children, so she was not seeking employment. Do you remember that?
Yes, that's correct.
All right. And so the children went back to school timely this fall?
EG started school, I believe it was late August, and then SC started early October.
And did Miss Jones seek any employment once the children went back to school, at least EG went back to school?
She did not.
How about before she was arrested? Do you know if she had any type of employment at that time?
She did not know.
So to your knowledge, she only sought employment here once the children were removed?
That's correct.
There are several need areas listed in your reports, and domestic relations actually is not listed as a need area. However, it doesn't appear that that has actually been addressed in this case, has it?
Not fully, no.
Okay. And then and while Ms. Jones' attorney does make mention that although that had not been addressed, the children were returned, do you still have concerns with that area?
Yes, due to Ms. Jones' emotional stability, she does not work very well with others. We hope that through counseling, Ms. Jones is able to work on those and hopefully be able to work with others more calmly in the future.
Okay. Are you aware of what services were offered to address the domestic relations prior?
Yes. When I had referred her to counseling, that was one of the barriers that I had initially talked with her counselor about.
Okay, and it sounds like counseling was unsuccessful?
That's correct.
Okay. You've also have housing, we've discussed that. You have parenting skills, is that still a need area?
It is.
And what has been offered to Ms. Jones related to parenting skills?
Ms. Jones was in our parent coaching program through the agency, and she was also unsuccessfully discharged.
And are you referring her to any of those services yet?
We have put in a referral for parenting support, visitation support. We are waiting to hear back from them as well.
And then we've addressed emotional stability, still a need area.
That's correct.
I do see that resource availability is also a need area. You answered a question earlier that her resources through food assistance and other areas, I guess, was satisfactory. However, it's still listed as a need. So can you explain what the need and resource availability is?
We have concerns around Ms. Jones' financial stability. I am hopeful that we are able to create a budget plan for Ms. Jones so that she is able to look at all of her expenses and appropriately go through her finances in the future.
And if you're not able to secure pay stubs to determine whether or not Ms. Jones has continued to work at Wendy's, are you able to contact the Wendy's she's working at to verify her employment?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. Social support system. Does Ms. Jones seem to have a social support system in this area?
Ms. Jones reports that she has social support through her church in the area.
Okay. Do you know what types of services they're providing for her and the children?
I do know that Ms. Jones took her children to the church weekly. I believe it was on Thursdays to have a dinner at the church. I do know that Ms. Jones has also reported that the church has been able to pay for different things for her.
Okay. And as far as emotional stability goes, are you aware if Ms. Jones is seeking any type of psychiatric treatment or anything where she can be assessed if she has any needs?
She has already completed her psychological evaluation.
Okay. And is it recommended she takes any medication? Are you aware of?
No, not at this time.
Okay. And what was the follow-up from that psych evaluation? Just counseling?
Yes, that's correct.
No further questions, Your Honor.
All right, thank you. Ms. Cardenas.
Your Honor, I have no questions at this time.
All right, thank you. Mr. Vanderkolk, can you follow up? You're muted.
Yes, thank you, Your Honor. This documentation only showing her schedule was only provided after we started adjudication. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And you had asked multiple times for that documentation long before we started adjudication, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Did it include her pay rate?
It does not.
So we would need to know that in order to determine if she can support herself and 2 children, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Thank you. I had no other questions, Your Honor.
Ms. Lowry.
So you said you had asked her specifically for her pay stubs from Wendy's?
I had asked her for verification.
Okay, prior to the last court hearing?
Yes, when she reported to me that she was looking for employment, I had asked her to let me know what her schedule would be like, and she told me it was not my business.
Okay. All right, thank you. No other questions.
Ms. Ortega.
No further questions. Thank you.
Ms. Cardenas.
No follow-up. Thank you.
Right, Mr. Vanderkolk, can you follow up?
No, Your Honor, the people rest.
All right. Any further? Well, you just said you rested. Okay. Ms. Ortega, any witnesses?
No, Your Honor.
Ms. Lowry, any witnesses?
No, Your Honor.
Ms. Cardenas, any witnesses?
No, Your Honor.
All right. Thank you. Just as a matter of procedure, a lot of questions were asked, I think, that would have been covered in the review portion of this hearing. So does anyone want to ask any more questions about that portion? I think we covered the adjudication portion, but we also covered a lot of review. And I just want to make sure that if anybody has any more questions on that end, that they have the opportunity to do that. Mr. Vanderkolk?
Thank you, Your Honor. I have no questions.
Ms. Ortega?
I do have a few questions about the children and fathers, Your Honor.
All right. Do you want to go ahead and do that now?
Yes, I think that'd be appropriate.
Okay.
Is Ms. Nicholson still witness?
Yes.
Thank you.
Ms. Nicholson, you're still under oath and you're still on the stand.
Thank you. Ms. Nicholson, how are the children doing in placement?
They are doing very well with their caregiver.
Are they enrolled in school?
The caregiver is working on getting EG enrolled.
Okay. Is that in the Saginaw area?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. And did they appear to have everything they need at this time?
Yes, they do.
And then what about the fathers in this matter? have they participated? Well, one father, what is Mr. Let me get this wrong. Mr. Gregory, are you able to offer him any services at this time?
I have gotten EG approved for visitation with Mr. Gregory. I am working with the jail to schedule those visits with Mr. Gregory and EG.
Is there anything that you're requiring of him to complete, any type of classes, paperwork, anything?
I have sent Mr. Gregory homework assignments via JPay. Mr. Gregory also participates in self-help groups and other activities through the facility.
And has he been cooperative with the agency so far?
He has.
And then how about Mr. Cooper? Have you been able to have any contact with him?
I have not, no. I've sent a letter to Mel Trotter, which was the last known location that we had for him, and that was returned back to the agency. I've also reached out to last known numbers. I've also sent out an email to the last known email, and I have not received any contact back.
Okay. And at this point, there's still no legal father for SC, is that correct?
That's correct.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Thank you. Ms. Lowry.
Yes, just in regards to visits, has Ms. Jones been able to visit with the children?
She has, yes.
And how often are those occurring?
Weekly.
All right, and the children are placed out of county, is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
So how are the visits being facilitated?
The agency has transported Ms. Jones to Saginaw, where the visits were held at a family center.
Okay, and so the visits are currently supervised?
Yes, that's correct.
Is there any need for supervision between Ms. Jones and the children?
Ms. Jones has been observed to yell at both children in these visits to the point where staff had to intervene. So at this point, the agency is asking for visits to be supervised.
Does the current caregiver never yell at the children?
Not to my knowledge.
Okay, and when were the children placed with the caregiver?
On October 23rd.
So since October 23rd, EG has not been enrolled in school?
The caregiver is working on enrolling the paperwork.
How long does the agency allow parents to get children enrolled in school once they've been unenrolled from school?
We encourage caregivers to complete that as soon as possible.
So what's the holdup in getting EG in school?
I've had conversations with the caregiver, and I will continue to provide my support to her, but I believe she's almost finished with the paperwork.
It's taken her almost 2 months to complete paperwork for enrollment in school?
That's correct.
And that's acceptable to the agency?
I have offered my support to the caregiver, so I will continue to follow up with her.
There was a mention about Ms. Jones being emotional or hard to work with people. She's now had her children removed from her care twice. Is she able to be emotional about this issue?
Yes.
Okay. Would it be concerning if a parent didn't care, wasn't emotional? I mean, doesn't get any closer to your heart than having your children removed, correct?
That's correct.
All right. And she's being told DV isn't an issue, and now she's being told DV is an issue, although there's been nothing new that's come up, correct?
That's correct.
All right. So just for going forward, Ms. Jones, you're going to discuss with her if the Y referral is approved?
Yes, I will.
All right. And you're recommending continued supervised visits, not unsupervised?
Supervised and then unsupervised at our discretion.
All right. Okay, and you need to maybe go through her phone or whatnot, figure out how much she's making currently.
That's correct.
All right. Is it still possible for her to, possible if the court allowed it or if the agency allowed it, for her to live with Miss Lindsay and the children in Saginaw?
I would have to have more conversations with the caregiver to make sure that she is still on board with that.
All right. Okay, no other questions.
All right, thank you. Ms. Cardenas.
Thank you. In regards to Mr. Gregory, I just kind of wanted to follow up. You said you have scheduled visits for EG Junior and Mr. Gregory?
I am working with the facility on getting those scheduled.
Okay, what's the holdup there?
Communication has been difficult with the facility.
Like you, just reaching back, because looking back at my notes, even in June, you were attempting to set up the visits. So is he having video visits with his child?
He's having phone calls with his child, yes.
Okay. Are you able to set up the video visits? Because I know we previously discussed that.
I will follow up with the well, I will continue my attempts to the facility.
Okay, but are video visits allowed?
Yes.
So what's the issue with setting up those video visits, especially since I know the child's placed with his mother? So is this something that she can supervise and just set up for him, or?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, and is she aware of this?
Yes, we have had conversations.
Does she have the capability to do that, like a computer screen, iPad, something like that?
Yes, she does.
Okay, so do you know why those aren't being set up?
I do not, but I will follow up. Oh, sorry.
Oh, I just didn't know. Is it like an issue with the prison, or is it an issue with just the relative just trying to set those up?
I will make sure to have follow-up conversations with the caregiver. But I do know that my communications with the facility has been difficult.
Okay. But you have been able to have conversations with the facility, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And I know what you're talking about because it's hard for me to have conversations with that facility as well. Okay. And then besides that, Mr. Gregory is availing himself of the services that are available to him while he's in prison, correct?
Yes, he is.
Okay. He has, throughout this case, kept in contact with his child?
Yes, he has.
No concerns there?
No.
Okay. Thank you. No more questions.
Mr. Vanderkolk.
Thank you, Your Honor. Ms. Jones was emotionally unstable long before her children were removed. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And it still remains a concern today?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, thank you. I have no other questions, Your Honor.
Ms. Ortega.
No questions, Your Honor.
Ms. Lowry.
Well, just to follow up. Okay, you said she was emotionally unstable long before the children were removed. That was never a reason the agency sought to remove the children, correct?
That's correct.
And could Miss Lindsay do this? I mean, you indicated that Mr. Gregory could have video visits with his children. I'm assuming with Miss Lindsay there. Can Miss Lindsay be the supervisor for Miss Jones if necessary?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. But his could, I mean, would you be ensuring that Miss Lindsay's supervising his visits between the children?
Yes, that's correct.
So you're not saying that Mr. Gregory should have unsupervised parenting time via phone video?
That's correct.
Okay. All right. Okay. No other questions.
Ms. Cardenas.
Sorry, no follow-up.
Mr. Vanderkolk, any follow-up? No, you're muted.
No follow-up, Your Honor.
Thank you. Ms. Ortega.
No, Your Honor, thank you.
All right. And let's see. Ms. Lowry, do you have any questions you'd like to make, any additional questions regarding the review portion?
I don't think so. I think I covered most of those already. Thank you.
All right. Ms. Ortega.
No, Your Honor, thank you.
Ms. Cardenas.
No, Your Honor.
All right. And does anyone, we're kind of off in the weeds here, but does anyone have any additional witnesses they would like to call at this time?
No, Your Honor.
No, Your Honor.
Your Honor.
All right. Thank you. Statements. Mr. Vanderkolk.
Thank you, Your Honor. It's clear that the petition has been proven by the requisite standard of preponderance of the evidence. The agency has tried to work with Ms. Jones by utilizing the KRP program, and we heard the clear testimony of Ms. Bowers, the KRP worker, that her efforts were for naught, not for trying, but because of Ms. Jones' resistance. And she failed to make progress in the goals. And I don't know what the reason may be, but it is clear that Ms. Jones was stubborn in engaging and utilizing the services, as well as applying what may have been taught. We've still got emotional instability that was demonstrated at school. From the testimony of, Ashley Vodder. We've got unaddressed issues here that place the children at risk of emotional harm. They are not receiving the services that they need. It wouldn't be surprising to find out that they've been traumatized by the behaviors, not to mention watching their own mother get arrested in their presence. We've got outstanding warrants. We've got an outstanding resisting and obstructing charge that still needs to be dealt with. And it is very difficult to parent your children when you're facing criminal charges if you're looking at further incarceration. So I'd ask that the court find the petition has been proven, make Ms. Jones a respondent at this time, and continue the children as wards of the court. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Ms. Ortega.
Thank you, Your Honor. As to the adjudication, I do believe that the department has met the burden necessary to have the court continue jurisdiction in this case, continue placement with the children outside of the home, if not for any reason, but there's nowhere to return the children to. So at minimum, housing makes it difficult for the children to return mom at this time. But there are several other significant issues as highlighted by the testimony. Instability, in emotional stability, clearly is not just based on removal of the children, as alleged in the most recent event of her arrest. There was obstruction, there was resistance, there was emotional instability displayed there to the level that was likely scary for the children. And she had her children in her care at that time. And so as much as it looks like she has been offered services to address these things, she's been offered KRP, obviously unsuccessfully. I think that that the children would be placed in a significant risk of harm if they were to return to their mom at this time. Clearly, they cannot be returned. The one child cannot be returned to Mr. Gregory, and we have an unknown father for the other child. So I would ask that the court does continue jurisdiction, continue removal of the children. As far as the review portion, Your Honor, I think that I did have a chance to meet virtually with the children. They are doing very well in their placement. I will immediately contact the caretaker and look into the schooling issue. I was not aware that the oldest was not enrolled in school. We'll see what we can figure out there. I don't believe it's for lack of trying on the part of the caregiver. So the children seem happy, healthy, and safe at this time. And so I would support the recommendations of supervised parenting time for Ms. Jones until she really gets into some services and liberal contact with Mr. Gregory. It's supervised. I think just by necessity, it will be supervised, but I don't have any concerns with his contact with his son. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Ms. Lowry.
Thank you. First, I would place my objection to adjudication on the new petition, the allegations in the new petition. Even if they're proven by preponderance, I don't believe they bring the children within the code. The testimony is that Ms. Jones got her children to school. They were at medical appointments. There was a plan for housing. They were placed with her mother following her arrest, which the agency said was an appropriate person. I certainly understand Ms. Jones' frustration and based on how things are going and what people are telling her. I think if the court remembers the testimony from the officer, he did admit to me that he had told Ms. Jones he would not arrest her based on warrants unless they were for something like murder. But what did he do? He arrested her for the warrants. So certainly that caused a lot of emotional response. People are telling her one thing and then they're doing another thing. Domestic violence was not a barrier when we returned the children to her home. Suddenly, even though there's no new domestic violence allegations, it's a barrier for her. Ms. Jones is trying her hardest. It's not for lack of caring or what did we say? Failure to make progress. She is juggling a lot of things. She is juggling 2 children, but she's getting them to school. She got them enrolled in time. She is juggling finding a job. Ms. Jones has mostly always been employed. She is able to find employment. She was able to find employment. There was a period of time where she was certainly juggling having housing instability and not knowing if she was going to move to Saginaw, which was part of the reason she wasn't looking for a job in Kent County. If she had been able to move to Saginaw with her children and into Miss Lindsay's home, I think we would be in a good spot. All these issues were not things that the agency ever brought up to the court as reasons to remove the children prior to her arrest. She hadn't completed KRP prior to this time. We all knew that. She she was looking into counseling, and that is something that's still continuing to be done. A lot of these things are not even requests that Ms. Jones has known about. Nobody asked her to look into these houses. And so it's very frustrating for her to try and keep up with the requests when communication isn't given to her. She didn't even know anything about the YWCA referral. So it's very frustrating, and I can understand her emotional response. I think the agency is holding her to a different standard than they're holding their own foster parents. 2 months to get a child enrolled in school that had been in school at 6 years old. Those are important years, and they would not allow a parent to do that. So that's pretty unacceptable. Ms. Jones was able to get her children to school. They had sufficient food, and we're in a period of changing. But when the facts come out, she had a place for her children to go when she was arrested. The agency's saying it wasn't a long-term placement. Well, she didn't need it long-term. So I think all of this came up, and I understand her frustration because of one thing, and now there are issues that weren't issues before that are being put under a microscope. So, I would ask that the court, at a minimum, allow her to have unsupervised parenting time with her children. If she's traveling to Saginaw for 2 days, her only 2 days off from her work, she should be able to spend that whole time with her children. Obviously, ideally, if she could go move to Saginaw and live with her children, maybe she could get the kids enrolled in school faster than Miss Lindsay can. But that's her support system, and so that was kind of where she's trying. But in the meantime, she's trying to do the best she can. She got a job at Wendy's. She's working 5 days a week. She's sent what shows that she is employed. We've obviously seen she's working at Wendy's. Now there's different things that are being requested of her, but nobody's really helping her figure out how to provide those things with the tools that she has. So, I think the children should be returned to her care, and she'd be allowed to live with Miss Lindsay in Saginaw if that's the plan. Obviously, housing is a newer issue that we're dealing with, but had it been allowed for all this to kind of settle, I don't think that would have been an issue, because they probably would have been in Saginaw altogether. Thank you.
Ms. Cardenas.
Thank you. Your Honor, my client would just not text you want to weigh in on the adjudication phase of it, whether to go forward with the supplemental petition. However, he does support the recommendations in terms of him continuing to have his visitation with his child and those related recommendations. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. All right. The court finds that the lawyer guardian ad litem has complied with the requirements of the statute. The court finds that the allegations in the amended petition have been proven by a preponderance of the evidence, that there's statutory grounds to continue to exercise jurisdiction over these children, including failure to provide, when able to do so, support, education, medical, surgical, or other necessary care for health or morals in an unfit home environment by reason of neglect, cruelty, drunkenness, criminality, or depravity on the part of a parent, guardian, non-parent, adult, or other custodian. That contrary to the welfare findings were made in a prior order. That reasonable efforts have been made to reunify the family, preserve and reunify the family, make it possible for these children to safely return home. And they are still recommended. Reasonable efforts shall be made to preserve and reunify the family. The custody of the children with a parent presents a substantial risk of harm to the children's life, physical health, or mental well-being. That no provision of service or other arrangement except removal is reasonably available to adequately safeguard the children from the risk of harm to the children's life, physical health, or mental well-being. The conditions of custody at the placement away from the home and with the individual with whom the children are placed are adequate to safeguard the children's health and welfare. The court orders that the children continue to be placed with the Department for Care and Supervision. Parenting time of Mr. Gregory is supervised until further order of the court. Parenting time of Ms. Jones is at the discretion of the agency to allow unsupervised or supervised parenting time by its designee. That the adjudicated respondents comply with and benefit from the case service plan. And the findings that the court have made, just to make it crystal clear, are based on first of all, judicial notice of the prior hearings in this matter, including the original adjudication, as well as all of the review hearings that were held, at least as to disposition or review. And also the concern this court has that even with these children being wards of the court, that Ms. Jones continues to refuse access to those children by the worker, and what the court sees as a slide. Frankly, I think we were all hoping that when we reunified the children with Ms. Jones, that things would start getting better, and frankly, they have not. So the court will continue the attorneys in this matter. The best advice I can give you, Ms. Jones, is you need to start cooperating. You need to start taking part in the services that have been offered to you, particularly and most importantly, counseling. You need to let Ms. Nicholson know all the information about your employment. I know you can get verification from your job of how much you make and how many hours of work or how many hours a week you work. I'm sure they would be happy to give you a letter that states that. But again, cooperation and engaging in services is what the court wants to see, so that hopefully we can get back to where we were back in May or June. All right, and Ms. Gibson, do we have a date for a review hearing?
Yes, Your Honor. March 11 at 9 a.m.
Any conflicts with that date or time?
No, Your Honor.
That will work.
Actually, yes, I do, Your Honor. I now recalling I'm guardian ad litem, so I will be out that week of March.
Okay, we'll look for another date.
Tuesday, March 4 at 11, or I'm sorry, at 9.
That works for me.
That works.
That works.
Okay, we will see you March 4th at 9 a.m.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Virtual
Thank
courtroom.
you.
We're adjourned.
We have Ms. Van Dyken, Attorney Van Dyken, for Mr. Reens, the attorney for mother. We have Attorney Roman Katsoric for Brett Green for father. We have Rick Gould representing the child in this case, CASA, Ms. Bauer, and various agency workers. Mr. Gould.
Thank you, Your Honor. At this point, I call Ms. Hall.
All right.
Thank you, Your Honor. Prior to beginning testimony, I've got the exhibits. I believe everybody has those. I'll go through them at this point. One would be the case service plan with a report date of 6/12/2024 and with attachments. Exhibit 2 would be the forensic fluids laboratory screens for Mr. Bell. There are 3 of them. Number 3 would be a letter who is from a clinician providing therapy for CH. It's a 1-page letter. Top of it says CH's name, date of birth, and then it's a signature on the bottom that I cannot read, so I'm not sure the name. Number 4 would be a 1-page step safety plan. Number 5 would be the parenting after trauma class completion report for Ms. Hernandez. And then number 6 would be the CASA report. Date of report is June 12 of 2024. I'd ask that 1 through 6 be admitted.
Any objection?
No objection.
No objection.
All right, they're admitted.
Thank you. Ms. Kelly, you are the supervisor for the foster care worker assigned to this matter, Ms. Hall. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
And you've been working with Ms. Hall on this matter, so you are up to date on the current situation with the case?
Yes, I am.
Okay. Let's start backwards on this case a little bit. Mr. Bell, any participation by Mr. Bell during this review period?
Over this reporting period, there has been minimal response from Mr. Bell. He has really just lacked communication overall with the agency as well as with his daughter.
And has there been any visits this report period?
I believe so. There has been 3 this reporting period out of 11 offered. He has only seen her 6 times since January when CH wanted to engage in parenting time visits. So he's often no-showed, or he's been calling and confirming that he'll be there, and then CH is brought in and he no-shows.
And CH, although she is open to the visits, is not really interested necessarily in having a long-term relationship with Mr. Bell. Is that an accurate statement?
That's true. Her relationship has really, I think that she had a lot of hope, but now the relationship has really just weakened. She's been very disappointed with the multiple no-shows. And so I know that's affected her quite a bit.
Did you or Ms. Hall have a chance to ask him in reference to the positive screen collected date of 5/22/2024 where he was positive for cocaine?
No, we haven't because Mr. Bell has not responded to attempted contact. Right now his phone goes straight to voicemail when we call it. So the last contact Mr. Bell had with Ms. Hall was the date of that drug screen being completed.
And Mr. Bell has indicated a lack of need for services. Is that accurate?
That's correct.
Has he been referred for any services this review period?
Over this reporting period, just ongoing conversations have been had with Mr. Bell about the importance of engaging in counseling. However, Mr. Bell continues to state that he will not engage in any individual counseling or domestic violence counseling. He does not feel it is needed. So that is one of the main barriers at this time.
And what about, obviously in light of the positive screen, what about substance abuse? Has he been referred for that?
Not yet, but he would be expected if he communicates with the agency. We would definitely refer him to do randomized drug screens consistently now that we have a concern that he is using. And then again, look at any additional services that are potentially needed for substances.
He's not employed. He's on Social Security disability. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And what about his housing living situation? What's the status with that? Do you know?
Mr. Bell does have his own housing. It is appropriate for CH to return to. There are no concerns with his housing at this time.
Is there anything else in reference to Mr. Bell you believe the court needs to be aware of?
I would just add that Mr. Bell did state that he would like to see that CH's behaviors improve before she would ever return to his care. So he has made it very clear that he feels like CH needs to change versus himself.
There was a brief period of time where CH was with his mother. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And there was an incident involving Mr. Bell and his unannounced show up at the home, correct?
Yes.
Can you elaborate a little bit on what happened?
From what occurred, it sounds like that Mr. Bell was intoxicated. I know his mother has reported just concerns of him being an alcoholic, and then CH also has stated concerns about his drinking. It sounds like he had threatened CH and was upset that she was placed with his mother. And I know it really upset his mother as well. We put in a safety plan in place after that occurred. But he did, like you stated, showed up unannounced and I believe was in a hostile state.
I believe he did subsequently apologize for his behavior. Is that accurate?
He may have. I'm not aware that he did.
Okay. Let's move on to Miss Henriquez. One of the exhibits we showed is that she completed the parent trauma class. Is that correct?
She did. She completed a parenting class through MSU extension over this last reporting period.
Okay. And that was Zoom sessions?
That's correct.
And what other services did you refer her to this review period?
Over this last reporting period, the worker, Ms. Hall, has continued to seek consistent counseling for Ms. Henriquez. There has been just numerous counselors and therapists contacted trying to find who takes her insurance. The place she was attending, she missed 2 appointments in a row, and it was only being scheduled about once a month. And we wanted to see her going at least weekly or biweekly. And it's not, Ms. Henriquez did not provide any information as to why she missed 2 of the appointments and then rescheduled. So at this point, she's only attended, I believe, 1 counseling session since she started. So Ms. Hall did find another therapist that she provided the information to Ms. Henriquez, and she had her first intake session this past Monday. And it sounds like that will be, the therapist was going to determine at that time if it would be weekly or biweekly. So I believe we do finally have consistent therapy for Ms. Henriquez. However, it's going to be imperative that she actually attend these appointments, as that's been the concern with a couple of other services that we've set her up with as well.
And what is the focus of that therapy?
So the focus of that therapy is primarily addressing just Ms. Henriquez's mental health status. It's not really clear at this time if she has diagnoses. However, her behaviors that she exhibits towards the worker, towards the agency, have been extremely concerning. And there's just a lot of noted concerns regarding her emotional stability. The other piece would be addressing her relationship with her daughter, CH, and really focusing on appropriate parenting, age-appropriate parenting, and how to keep her safe. And then also domestic relations. There is a history of reported domestic violence.
Okay. First off, she denies there being a history of domestic violence.
That's correct.
And has she indicated a lack of interest or desire to participate in that type of counseling?
She has, yes.
And what sort of concerning behavior has she exhibited towards the agency and staff?
Ms. Henriquez primarily shows or displays extreme paranoia behavior. She will contact the worker multiple times in a row and then go to the supervisor, myself, the program manager, the director. She'll send 20 text messages at a time. She really struggles to fully understand what is being explained to her. And again, she's very hostile in nature. She talks very negative about the agency and her worker, and consistently requests that she have a new foster care worker. It's just been her behavior's just been very unstable with her communication with the agency.
Employment. I know that she's indicated in the past employment, but have we ever had any verification of employment?
She is not employed. She receives SSI benefits at this time, and she has shown proof of those payments.
Okay. And housing. What's the status on her housing? Any further info?
The agency at this time has still attempted to get more information regarding Ms. Henriquez's housing, as the lease that she provided the agency was her old lease, where the 2023 year was crossed out and changed to 2024. So therefore, the document was then signed for December of 2024, which is a future date. And so that raised concern. And Ms. Hall has been asking Ms. Henriquez for her landlord's information. We've been trying to find who she's leasing through based off the lease document that we were able to see. And we've not been successful in confirming that she has the apartment that she reports. Most recently, it's been reported that she's been in New York, so it's even unknown if she's in Hawaii at this time. It's really been unclear of what her current housing is.
And is she still refusing to allow you to make arrangements for somebody to come and do the housing?
That's correct. She declines and makes it very clear that she will not meet with the agency if we go to Hawaii. She also continues to refuse any virtual visit for us to see where she's living.
You mentioned New York. During this review period, she went there at least as far as you understand. Is that correct?
Yes.
And do you know how long she was there?
I do not.
Did she reach out at all in an attempt to try to make contact here and visit with her daughter while she was in the United States, here in the continental United States?
No, we have offered that to her, though, or inquired about Ms. Henriquez coming to the state of Michigan, which she has made very clear that she will not come to Michigan.
And what other services has she been asked to engage in throughout the case, I guess, basically?
So Ms. Henriquez has also been referred for the domestic violence assessment, and that was one of the appointments that she rescheduled. And I believe it was supposed to occur within this past week, so I don't know at the time if she attended. The other service was for substance abuse assessment, as well as drug screens we were trying to obtain. And the worker, Ms. Hall, has asked Ms. Henriquez to contact the health clinic where she was doing therapy about completing drug screens, which she has not at this time, to our knowledge. And then she also was referred for the trauma-informed parenting, which she participated in, but she was discharged, or she successfully didn't complete it based on her engagement and leaving early or coming on late.
The prior therapist that she had, did she sign releases so Ms. Hall could get information from that therapist as to progress, goals, etc.?
I don't know if she did for the specific therapist through the health center, but I do know that the domestic violence center or facility, she has not signed a release, as Ms. Hall continues to try and call and they will not provide information. So Ms. Hall has continued to ask Ms. Henriquez to connect with them and sign consensual releases for her to communicate to confirm if she's attended or just if there's any classes that she's signed up for, as Ms. Henriquez has reported she's on a waiting list for domestic violence classes.
Well, I just touch base here. I'm somewhat confused by what you said. You said it the parenting after trauma class that she was discharged. However, the report we got here indicates that she participated in all of the sessions, just making sure, and that it seems to be is that she did engage in the class and she shared information and participated. Am I misunderstanding something here?
So that's the MSU extension class. So she did complete that one virtually. However, the one before that was trauma-informed parenting through Wedgwood, and that's the one that she did not complete.
Okay, so there was another one previously that she'd been referred to that she did not complete.
Correct.
Okay, sorry, I just want to make sure I understood that. Okay, how would you rate Ms. Hernandez's progress at this point?
At this point, I would rate the progress as 4 overall.
And then let's move on to CH. CH, I believe, is currently in her 13th placement.
That is correct.
But it appears as of, well, at least yesterday, she was doing pretty well in that placement, correct?
Yes, she has adjusted fairly well to this new placement.
Some lack of engagement with the family and activities that is somewhat troubling to the caregiver, yet attempts are being made to get CH to engage further. Is that accurate?
Yes, it is.
Okay. The home itself is safe and appropriate. There are no safety related issues.
Correct.
CH has not really been a behavioral problem in the home, correct?
Correct.
There was one incident where her and a younger child rode their bikes up to a park or whatever and were gone longer than anticipated, but they did both come back before, I think before the police were called. Is that correct?
My understanding is the police located both of them at a park nearby, and CH reports that she got lost, but she was supposed to just go around the block, but did not do so and left for a period of time.
But that was about the most egregious thing that we've had since she's been in this placement, though.
That's correct.
Okay. CH still has a fixation on social media and contacts with unknown men and young men, and still has a fixation on, I believe it's Teddy and B. Is that accurate?
That's correct. There's been a variety of individuals that CH has spoken to via social media apps, that she somehow obtains phones and gets access to these apps. She's not supposed to have a phone, but she has reached out and had conversations with, like you stated, older and younger males, and they talk about meeting up. They talk about her running away. CH has actually been really open and honest with her CASA worker, which I think is extremely beneficial in this situation, as I think that she really trusts her CASA worker. And it's just been really beneficial because CH, like I stated, has been very open with her. So it's helpful to get that information and try to support CH in the best way possible and keep her safe, as that's our biggest concern right now, is her safety.
I believe that CH was suspended from school, so she did not have a very good end of school year.
She did not, and she also broke her laptop when she was doing the virtual schooling, so she wasn't able to continue attending Lighthouse. They didn't have in person, and now it's summer break. I know that Miss Hall was working on connecting with Lighthouse about their summer program or when that starts up, and I don't have an update since last week after I know she had reached out to the school to get some information.
CH is up to date on medical exams, but we're trying to get her a dental exam because she glued some glittery jewelry to her teeth.
Yes, that is correct. It sounds like she glued, like you say, the glitter, I don't know what they are, stickers or jewels, and she can't get them off now. So she's going to have to go to the dentist to see what we can do.
Okay, is there any progress in getting an appointment set up for that?
I can follow up with staff today. I've been out of the office, so I can follow up right after this.
Okay. How is CH as far as working with Miss Hall?
I believe they have a really good relationship as well. CH appears to have rapport in a relationship where she trusts Miss Hall. I do think that she has potentially a stronger relationship with her CASA. She sees her more frequently. And often the CASA worker takes her out, takes her shopping, does a lot of one-on-one things with CH.
Previously, CH was meeting with Lynn Jackson through the STEP program and on a kind of an educational basis. Is that correct?
That's correct.
However, Ms. Jackson was only able to go so far with it, but now Ms. Jackson in her private role is continuing counseling with CH. Is that accurate?
That's correct. We were able to get CH set up to continue seeing her, Ms. Jackson, with part of her private practice. So no longer through the actual STEP program, but we wanted that to continue as CH is also very open and honest with her therapist. And that has been consistent for many months now.
Okay. And that seems to be at least beneficial to try to educate CH as far as some of the dangers that she's putting herself into.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. We have a PPH here today, so I need to ask you some magic questions. Number one, do you believe that the return of CH to either of her parents today would place her at a substantial risk of harm to life, health, or mental well-being?
Yes, I do.
Do you believe it's in CH's best interest to proceed towards termination of parental rights?
Yes, I do.
And the reasons for that is what?
Overall, the lack of participation since CH entered care, it's been over 12 months at this time, and poor progress has been made on both Mr. Bell and Ms. Henriquez treatment plans.
And CH is able to engage in age-appropriate developmental activities, both in the at the home through the current foster parents, as well as through activities with the CASA worker. Is that accurate?
Yes, that is.
Okay. Riding bikes, going for walks, going shopping, going to dinner, etc. are some of the examples, right?
Yes, and she just is starting swimming lessons now as well.
It's true. Okay. What's your recommendation then for purposes of today?
It is respectfully recommended that CH remain in out-of-home placement in a licensed foster home or with an appropriate relative, and that Ms. Henriquez and Mr. Bell comply and benefit from their parent agency treatment plans, that parenting time remains supervised at this time, and that the pregnancy planning goal for CH change from reunification to adoption, and that a termination hearing be scheduled in 90 days.
At the last hearing that we were at here, we had some discussion in reference to residential placement for CH because of the numerous placements and the breaking of the same. WMPC had some hesitation on doing that because of trying to find appropriate foster care placement. Is that accurate?
That is accurate. So basically, at any given time, the agency and WMPC are trying to maintain youth in the community. So if there is a foster home that's willing to take placement, we would be going with that placement to keep her in the community and provide just a variety of community-based services to maintain that. However, I can say that concurrent discussions continue to be held regarding the potential of residential with my director and program manager due to the nature of how many times she's moved and her only being in this home now for about a month. Despite it going well, there is at any chance she could put in her notice. It is a Catholic Charities licensed foster home, so she also, I think, is just staying open to her own agency. And basically, it's just we don't know how long she's willing to maintain placement at this time.
Thank you, Honor. Nothing further at this point.
Thank you. Ms. Van Dyken.
Thank you. Ms. Kelly, my client spoke about sending CH a birthday gifting card that CH didn't get. Can you speak to that?
I did see that, and I would have to follow up with staff. I've been off this week, so it sounds like on Tuesday she was supposed to be given a card by the behavior specialist at the agency. So I'll follow up with the behavior specialist to see if that was provided or where that's at, so we can get it to her.
And currently, she now has a therapist where she began therapy on this past Monday, correct?
Yes.
And is she expected to go on a weekly basis?
The therapist was going to let us know the outcome of that on Monday to determine if it would be weekly or bi-weekly. So we just need to follow up with him.
Nothing further, Your Honor.
Thank you, Mr. Kasorg.
Thank you, Your Honor. Ms. Kelly, reading of the reports, there was a mention of my client having at least one of his children in a guardianship. Is that correct?
I'm not aware that he has another child in a guardianship, I don't believe.
Okay. Well, I'm going to find it and we'll come back to that. As far as his drug screens are concerned, he had 2 screens in March and in April that were negative.
Yes.
For all substances. And the May screen showed positive for cocaine, and it was almost a little bit above the cutoff level. Is that a fair statement?
Yes, that's correct.
So it was a very low level.
It was, yes.
So that is not indicative of a addicted person or a constant user.
I think that would have to be further assessed now that he tested positive. We need to do screens more frequently to determine if it's a concern.
All right. But the screens, at least for April and March, did show up negative.
Correct.
Right. Let me move on to his current living arrangement. Currently, he is receiving Social Security disability and he has a voucher for his apartment, correct?
Yes.
Is the apartment appropriate for him and another person?
Yes.
Right. And of course, Mr. Bell has some reservations about having CH living with him because of some of the allegations that she made against him in the past.
I would say that's accurate, yes.
However, those allegations were unsubstantiated. Is that a fair statement?
Yes.
Thank you. And CH has been, again, in placement. This is her 13th placement many times.
That's correct.
Has she ever been placed with her grandmother?
He was, over this reporting period, paternal grandmother.
Right. And that fell apart?
Yes, it was very short term. And grandmother asked that she be immediately moved due to some threats that she was making.
On page 53 of your case service plan, it does, where it references Mr. Andre Bell, family information and assessment, it does indicate that apparently he has 2 other daughters, one who's in a guardianship with her maternal grandmother and the other who is an adult. Do you see that?
Yes, I do see it in the report.
As your recommendation today is for an adoption, permanency goal of adoption. Have you discussed with people that are involved in this case the possibility of a guardianship based upon the age and the needs of this child?
At this point, we do not have anyone to identify guardian to do a guardianship. As far as the individuals that you listed in the report, I would have to follow up to see if contact has been made with any of those half siblings, caregivers. I know that our family finder has done extensive family finding, so I would just have to follow up and see what kind of contact has been had with potentially those listed for the half siblings caregivers.
And likewise, you did not discuss of a possibility of a guardianship with the parents.
I did not myself. I don't know. I can't speak if Ms. Hall did or did not.
Thank you. Nothing further.
Thank you. Mr. Gold, any follow-up?
Just a quick follow-up here in reference to the relatives. CH was placed for a very brief time with the maternal grandmother, correct?
Yes, both maternal and paternal.
And per conversations with Ms. Hernandez and I believe with Mr. Bell, no other relatives have been identified as viable placement options for her as of today.
That's correct. And those are ongoing conversations we have every time we potentially have to move CH. We're asking about any family or relatives.
Okay, thank you, Your Honor. Nothing further.
Ms. Van Dyken, any follow-up?
No, Your Honor, thank you.
Mr. Kasorg?
No, thank you, Your Honor.
All right. Statements. Mr. Gold.
Well, number one, Your Honor, I have no other witnesses or evidence to present. I don't know if anybody else does.
I'm sorry, I'm skipping ahead here.
I know. I'm just trying to help you.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Ms. Van Dyken, any witnesses or evidence?
None, Your Honor.
Mr. Kasorg, any witnesses or evidence?
No, Your Honor.
All right. Now. Cool.
Thank you, Your Honor. I did have a chance to talk to CH yesterday. We had a nice conversation. She still doesn't grasp the danger that she potentially would place herself into with her use of the social media. She still wants to have contact with, I believe it's Teddy and B. And it's a very sad situation. This is a young girl, I think, who grew up in a lot of trauma, bad situations, and just really has difficulty in that respect. She's doing quite well overall in the home. I did talk to the foster mother also. Although there are some frictions and some issues there, they're dealing with it. They're working with it. They're hoping to get her more involved with socializing with the family. It's quite a social family that they have. And there's some issues with her showing appropriate respect to the foster mother as well as to older members of the family. But they're working on it and things are slowly progressing. Ms. Barr, as noted, has struck up a very good relationship with CH. She has been very thorough in her reports of how their visits go. They meet pretty much on a weekly basis. Dinner, go out shopping. They just have very, very good conversations. And she does open up to Ms. Barr far beyond, I think, what she really opens up to anybody else. But I think at this point, the recommendation is appropriate. Neither of the parents have really shown that they are concerned about CH, that they are willing to do engage in services and do what they need to do to get CH returned to them. And it has been approximately a year's period of time here. So it will be a very difficult placement of CH for a long-term permanency. But I believe that the recommendation is appropriate and we can work on fulfilling that next step if the court should agree. Thank you.
Van Dyken.
Thank you, on behalf of Mr. Reins and Mr. Enriquez, we would object to the recommendation of termination for a number of reasons. One, Ms. Enriquez appears to be engaging now into a treatment plan with regard to therapy. And two, as Mr. Gould stated, or I believe Mr. Sorg, this child has been in 13 placements in 13 months. If we're seeking permanency, I don't believe that termination of parental rights at this point in time is the direction that this court needs to go. So I'd enter an objection to that. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Kasorik.
Thank you, Your Honor. Likewise, we would object to the recommendation of termination and adoption. I think the issue of guardianship needs to be more developed and looked into. That's number one. And number two, my client has been making at least some progress. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. The court finds that the lawyer guardian ad litem has complied with the requirements of the statute, that returning this child to either parent would cause a substantial risk of harm to the child's life, physical health, or mental well-being due to the lack of progress that either parent has made on their barriers, that this child should not be returned to a parent at this time, that the agency should initiate proceedings to terminate parental rights for this child due to the lack of progress by the parents and her need for permanency and stability. I recognize that she's moved around a lot in foster care, but I also have her delinquency case, and it appears to me a lot of that is caused by the trauma that she's experienced in her home with Ms. Enriquez and with her father. And hold on just a moment, my computer is going crazy here. Ms. Gibson, can you quick email me the order? I don't know what's going on with this, but it's frozen.
Sure.